For years, Lutz worked tirelessly in the kingdom, yet his efforts were ignored. Later that day, Lutz sat alone at a table and drank quietly. Thoughts about leaving his old workplace still lingered in his mind. While reaching for payment, several coins slipped into his palm. A quick check revealed he had no money left. Nearby, a cheerful man from the empire noticed his gloomy mood and approached him. Two powerful countries stood in constant rivalry, struggling over land while maintaining fragile peace through trade. While drinking with a traveler from the empire, Lutz spoke about his past. Soon after, Lutz returned to the workplace where he had served before. Several workers noticed his presence and questioned his decision. Accusations followed, and they criticized him for not working as hard as the others. At the magic office, Lutz handled item appraisals while observing how others worked. Despite doing his duties carefully, his superiors constantly reduced his pay and accused him of laziness. Harsh words followed, and he was labeled a worthless failure. Frustration finally erupted. Lutz slammed his work down and declared that he was leaving the job. Without hesitation, he walked away from the office, determined never to return. After leaving the magic office, Lutz heard a traveler speak about the empire. Lutz walked alone through a forest, thinking carefully about the suggestion and the future ahead of him. Memories of the Empire's academy and its opportunities came to his mind, making the path toward the Empire seem more appealing. Suddenly, a loud sound echoed through the forest. Moments later, several wild wolves appeared and surrounded him. A demon dog suddenly attacked in the forest, forcing Lutz to react immediately. With swift movement, he rushed forward and pulled a frightened child away from danger. Flames burst across the battlefield as Lutz cast a strong fire spell toward the monsters. When the first attack failed to finish them, he released an even stronger spell, engulfing the beasts in intense fire. After the battle ended, the rescued child looked at him with excitement and gratitude. Lutz knelt on the ground while the rescued boy and his guardian watched in amazement. The man questioned why a skilled wizard like Lutz was traveling through such a dangerous area alone. Soon, the man apologized for doubting him, and explained that chantless magic was extremely rare and valuable. When Lutz mentioned his previous pay, the man was shocked by how little he had earned. As night approached, the family kindly invited Lutz to stay at their home for the night. After dinner, the old man handed him a sealed letter as a small token of gratitude. While sitting at the table, the old man explained that the letter was an official invitation, where the guards would guide him once they saw the seal. The next morning, Lutz thanked the family and continued his journey toward the empire. After traveling far, he finally reached the capital and realized he had arrived at his new beginning. Lutz entered the empire's capital, observing the busy streets and realizing his new journey had begun. Across the vast empire, a grand city spreads beneath towering walls and a distant palace. Unfamiliar surroundings and many strangers fill the area as he quietly observes the empire's daily activity. Soon after, the traveler arrives at the imperial palace gate, where armored guards immediately stop his approach. Without hesitation, he presents an invitation letter carrying the name of an important figure. One guard steps away to confirm the message while the traveler waits silently before the palace entrance. Inside the palace entrance, a guard approaches a noble figure known as Sir Lambert. The report explains that a man from the kingdom has arrived, carrying an invitation connected to Mr. Rave. At the palace gate, the armored guards open the large doors to allow the visitor inside. Traveler steps forward confidently as the guards kneel in respect, acknowledging the authority behind the invitation. Standing before them, the traveler is identified as Oscar Lutz, the man invited through Mr. Rave's message. Inside the palace, Sir Lambert observes the young traveler carefully, deciding to examine his abilities. They walk through the palace courtyard while discussing the traveler's journey. Sir Lambert studies him with interest, noting the long distance he must have traveled to reach the empire. The traveler calmly reveals that he walked the entire way, treating the journey as part of his training. Hearing this, the surrounding men react with shock, realizing the unbelievable distance he crossed to arrive there. Discussion continues as the young traveler explains the reason behind his long journey. Soon after, Sir Lambert leads the traveler deeper into the palace. They enter a massive circular hall used for training and magical practice within the empire. The noble explains that the place allows wizards to train and refine their practical magic. Standing in the center, Sir Lambert prepares to examine Lutz's wand and witness the true level of his power. In the training grounds, Lutz prepares to demonstrate his abilities around the arena. Several people gather to watch the entrance examination. Moments later, powerful flames burst from his hand, forming a blazing mass of magic. The flames expand into a massive attack, resembling falling meteors, crashing toward a magical barrier in the arena. Witnessing the spell, the observers realize that Lutz has used advanced magic without any chant, leaving everyone stunned by his unexpected power. Sir Lambert watches the blazing meteors streak across the training grounds. Across the arena, flaming meteors continue falling, as Lutz calmly controls the spell. Once the spell settles, the attack resembles a grand magical performance rather than a battle technique, since no enemies are present. Maney once believed attack magic was unnecessary in peaceful times, leaving such abilities overlooked. He explains that powerful wizards are still needed to protect people, especially where demon beasts appear. After witnessing his overwhelming magic, the officials formally welcome Oscar Lutz. Excitement spreads among the wizards as they discuss his chantless magic. He reveals that court wizards serve under the magic marshal and offers Lutz a place within his group, along with a generous salary. Hearing about the rewards and missions involving demon beasts, Lutz gladly accepts the offer. With arrangements for lodging and guidance prepared, Lutz begins his new life in the imperial capital. Near the training grounds, a guard suddenly stumbles and falls, while rushing towards Sir Lambert and Oscar Lutz. She cheerfully leads him toward the dormitory area to help him settle into his new place within the Empire. Inside a long academy corridor, Lutz follows a young guide with glasses. Curious about the visitor, the guide asks about his origin. Lutz explains that he came from the eastern region of the West Kingdom. She checks whether Lutz recovered after falling earlier. Soon after, she begins introducing another place. During their walk along a balcony, the guide explains the Empire's structure. Seeing the unusual vehicle, Lutz pauses in surprise, while the guide stands ready to continue their journey. While riding the floating transport, the guide asks Lutz about his magical abilities. The guide praises Lutz's talent and expresses admiration for his ability. She hopes to learn the same skill someday. Quietly thinking, Lutz reflects on his new situation. He remembers that he was recruited as a soldier and wonders about someone named Fina. Soon the floating transport stops in front of a large building, standing near the entrance. Lutz looks at the impressive structure. At the dormitory entrance, Lutz pushes the large door with too much force. As the doorway clears, Lutz notices someone familiar standing inside. His attention immediately turns toward the figure, realizing it is Fina. The dormitory quickly fills with excitement as many gather around. Lutz is introduced as a new recruit, chosen by Sir Lambert, and assigned to the dormitory starting today. Suddenly, a fast object drops from above, and strikes the ground with force, startling everyone nearby. Inside the dormitory, a tall man appears in the hallway, holding kitchen tools. Atmosphere suddenly changes when the man smiles and warmly greets Lutz. Large pots boil, while he prepares a special welcoming meal for everyone. Later the students gather around a long dining table. The group enjoys the meal together, praising the delicious food. The quality of the food impresses him far more than anything he had eaten in the kingdom. During the meal in the dining hall, one student suggests that Lutz demonstrate his magic. Lutz calmly raises his hand and forms a large sphere of water above the table. Soon several smaller water spheres appear and begin floating across the table. Without warning, the spheres suddenly burst. Water splashes across the cups and dishes, surprising the students nearby. Excitement quickly spreads through the room. Many cheer and praise Lutz's chantless magic. Impressed by the rare ability, they eagerly ask him about the kingdom and offer to share information about the Empire as well. Students welcome Lutz warmly and treat him like a new ally while continuing their meal together. Fina quickly steps in and pulls Lutz away, asking everyone not to crowd him too much. John then speaks up and tells Lutz to leave dormitory matters to him. Standing beside Lutz, Fina thanks him politely for the help. After hearing John mention her title, Lutz looks at Fina with confusion. Leaning closer, Fina quietly expresses her wish for Lutz to join her magical corps in the Empire. Soon after, she leaves the dormitory and promises to return the next day. Watching her go, Lutz realizes she may become his future superior. Morning light spreads across the city while Lutz opens the curtains and looks outside. From the building, he watches the busy atmosphere and calmly acknowledges the start of the morning. A large meal soon fills the table as he eats heavily to prepare for the day. Moments later, a girl finally appears, slightly out of breath after arriving late. Lutz observes her with curiosity, understanding that she will guide him as their work officially begins. Inside the grand building of the Dahlia Magic Corps headquarters, Lutz follows his guide through the entrance as the day's duties begin. Soon after, she hands him a set of clothes and instructs him to change. Once dressed, Lutz receives his tailored uniform and adjusts it carefully. Before leaving, he gathers his focus and prepares himself mentally for the responsibilities ahead. During the assembly, he stands before the gathered members as the leader introduces him. After the introduction, Lutz and another member are told to remain behind, while the others leave the area. His guide then asks him to sit and wait in a quiet room, explaining that he still needs time to learn the building. While waiting alone, Lutz slowly drinks tea and notices its unusual scent. Suddenly, the door bursts open as a man enters the room with great energy. The newcomer studies Lutz closely, clearly curious about the unfamiliar face sitting there. As the man approaches, the atmosphere in the corridor suddenly shifts. Moments later, the man smiles calmly, and flowers magically bloom around him. The guide explains that the strange display comes from his magic, something he often uses while moving through the building. Afterward, he casually drinks tea while observing Lutz, showing interest in the new member who has just arrived. Finally, he introduces himself as Paul Grug, the assistant leader and captain of the second squad. The discussion continues as the officers explain that Lutz's position will be determined by his natural abilities. They describe two possible roles within the Corps: protecting the city as a guard or hunting magical beasts outside the walls. Lutz listens carefully while they explain how his skills will decide where he belongs. Soon after, they lead him outside and request that he demonstrate as many support. Watching from a distance, Paul quietly doubts that Lutz will meet Lambert's expectations. The spinning barrier roars outward, blocking the force around him and showing his control over defensive magic. Without stopping, he continues casting several spells in sequence. Observers watch with surprise as Lutz calmly completes the series of spells. Next, he summons a stone soldier that crashes into the field with heavy force, showing both offensive and defensive capability. Spectators quickly realize that Lutz can use multiple types of advanced magic, leaving them shocked by his unusual talent. After witnessing the display of magic, Paul finally acknowledges Lutz's remarkable ability. Lutz is officially assigned the role of a hunter, responsible for dealing with magical beasts outside the city. When asked if he is tired after using so much magic, Lutz simply confirms he is ready to continue. His cheerful response surprises the others, as he confidently shows enthusiasm for the work ahead. Later, the report reaches higher authorities who immediately order Lutz to be sent on an expedition. He prepares for departure with his companion, beginning a dangerous expedition toward the distant Dragon Realm. Dense forests and distant mountains mark the region where dangerous monsters gather. Inside the academy, an instructor delivers a sudden announcement. Among the group stands Lutz, a newcomer who only recently joined the academy. The instructor calmly explains that the command was issued by higher authority and cannot be refused. Lutz focuses on the upcoming journey as the group prepares to clear the monsters blocking the roads and secure the safety of nearby villages. Expedition Group learns that the vehicles will carry them halfway toward the Dagon territory. Magic cars are considered luxury items in the kingdom, rarely seen by ordinary people. A teammate explains that the car runs using magical power, making travel faster and more efficient. During the ride, experienced members discuss their regular missions to the Dagon area. While the vehicle travels across open land, Lutz focuses on the task ahead and resolves to meet the expectations placed upon him. The expedition finally reaches a barren wasteland within the Dagon area. Lutz is assigned to remain at the rear while preparing his warning magic to detect approaching threats. As they move deeper into the wasteland, a heavy sandstorm begins to rise, slowly thickening and reducing the group's visibility. Within the swirling dust, Lutz senses movement beneath the ground. The team reacts instantly, turning toward the direction of the disturbance as the hidden creature begins to emerge from the sand. A sudden movement breaks the tense silence in the wasteland. Lutz notices a creature emerging from the sand. Group identifies them as strange blade wolves, and 4 enemies quickly surround the team. Magic circles form as members begin casting spells to support the fighters on the front line, despite the danger. She continues casting while others move to assist. A powerful spell erupts across the battlefield, releasing a surge of wind and flame that strikes the attacking wolves. As the battle intensifies, Lutz steps forward and casts a spell that creates a wind barrier. Frontline fighters respond by channeling fire magic through their weapons. At the center of the formation, the mage focuses and summons a powerful technique. The spell releases a massive attack that surges across the battlefield, striking the blade wolves with overwhelming force. Watching from behind, Lutz realizes the team has combined different elements into unified magic, creating a far stronger technique. After the battle, the mage reflects on the moment when Lutz sensed the blade wolves before anyone else. Lutz drinks one and notices how surprisingly smooth it tastes compared to the harsh potions used in the kingdom. Their journey continues into the dangerous forest of the Dagon outback. Some members quietly observe Lutz's calm attitude, despite the exhausting mission. Impressed by his abilities, the mage decides that Lutz will assist her as a vanguard during future battles. Lutz looks surprised as the new role is assigned to him, realizing greater responsibility awaits. Inside a large library, shelves filled with books surround a quiet workspace. News about the kingdom gaining a powerful ally spreads through the hall. Work continues in the library as the young man focuses on magical research. Several books and tools remain scattered across the desk during the study. Beyond the city, a vast barren landscape stretches under the sky. During another moment, a mage raises her staff and unleashes the spell Crimson Twin Fang. A fierce battle unfolds as a group of mages confronts attacking Razorfang wolves. Attention turns to Lutz, as a senior mage reminds him that frontline mages must handle close combat. Behind the formation, 2 mages observe the battlefield and focus on strengthening their defensive support while protecting the healing unit from unnecessary strain. Lutz raises his staff and releases a powerful spell, creating a large wind shield, shaking the surrounding landscape as the team's coordinated assault lands successfully. After the intense battle, the group stands among the fallen monsters. Lutz remains steady, despite the pressure of the fight. As the forest grows darker, the group decides to stop traveling. Tents are prepared while a small fire begins to burn. Some members rest near the campsite, while Lutz sits alone for a moment. Later, one of the mages approaches Lutz and brings warm drinks. Near the fire, Lutz remains on watch while the others prepare for rest. The group notices several large logs packed inside the storage bags. Soon after, the materials from the storage bags are used to start a fire. Flames rise steadily as the camp becomes warmer. Later, Lutz and the mage sit near the fire and quietly review the earlier battle training and hardship there shaped his ability to endure difficult situations and continue fighting. Her own experiences remind her that survival often required relying on personal strength and determination. Under the quiet night sky, Lutz and the mage sit near the campsite after the long battle. The idea that those struggles may have prepared him for something greater causes Lutz to pause. She begins to imagine a future where Lutz continues advancing far beyond his current position. Looking up at the starry sky, she expresses hope that he might someday lead others from the front. Wondering whether he truly has the ability to reach such a high goal, Mage shares her belief that the Empire offers opportunities that were impossible in the kingdom. Even as a stranger from another land, the people accepted him and treated him as part of their ranks. Determination grows within him as he decides to become stronger. If Lutz continues rising through the ranks, their paths may eventually separate. Despite that possibility, she walks beside him with confidence, offering her support as he moves toward the future ahead. At sunrise, Lutz suddenly senses a strange disturbance in the forest. The quiet morning feels different. Members gather their equipment while scanning the forest, uncertain about the source of the disturbance. Standing at the front, Lutz steadies himself and prepares for whatever approaches, determined to confront the threat with everything he has. A small party moves carefully across the open land while sensing a threatening presence nearby. Without warning, a massive rock crashes down from the sky and slams into the ground. From the surrounding forest, several large beasts begin to appear. The travelers soon recognize the creatures as dangerous white ram apes. One towering ape advances toward the group while the others slowly surround them. Kazuki steadies himself as the monstrous leader stares down at the party. His companions realize their formation has broken during the sudden ambush. A massive white ram ape charges forward with overwhelming force. He reacts immediately, raising his arm while watching the incoming strike. Healing and protection become the priority, while the monster continues its assault. Despite their efforts, the ape moves with terrifying speed. Kazuki struggles to follow its movements as the battle grows more dangerous, watches his injured companion struggle after another heavy strike from the monsters. With firm resolve, Kazuki raises his hand and activates a powerful magic circle. The white ram apes hesitate as they sense the overwhelming power gathering in front of them. Kazuki moves forward alone, deliberately drawing the attention of every white ram ape. A swirling barrier of wind forms around Kazuki, protecting him from the incoming assault while the battlefield erupts with violent energy. Their massive claws crash against the swirling wind barrier, but the shield deflects the attacks and holds the monsters back. Behind him, the rest of the party quickly realizes the opportunity Kazuki created. Wind blades and water arrows begin forming, gathering strength for a combined attack. The spells merge together, creating a powerful technique called Frozen Gale. Storm of frozen blades crashes into the battlefield, striking the white ram apes and shaking the ground with a devastating impact. The storm of frozen blades tears across the battlefield, throwing the white ram apes into the air. Seeing the remaining enemies move again, Kazuki steps forward without hesitation. A powerful whirl of wind gathers around Kazuki's arm. The spinning force launches forward like a spear. The battlefield grows quiet as the final enemy collapses. Kazuki's companions watch in surprise, realizing the battle has finally ended. Silence spreads across the canyon as the group confirms the mission's success. Kazuki and his companion arrived at a small mountain village after safely delivering supplies. With the delivery finished, Kazuki prepared to return and report the mission to Lord Lambert. Before leaving, The young mage stopped him and pulled him aside, drawing his attention. She guided Kazuki toward a quieter path near the village houses, away from the others. The mage raised a concern about the magic Kazuki had used against the white ram apes. Kazuki listened carefully after hearing the warning about his magic. Standing nearby, the mage acknowledged his abilities and reminded him that his actions had helped save everyone during the battle. With a serious gaze, she urged Kazuki not to shoulder every burden alone. He accepted her words and gently took her hand, showing that he understood the advice and trusted her support. As the two stood together near the village path, other members of the magic corps approached. One child gratefully offered a special flower that only bloomed in their village. Soon, more children gathered around Kazuki and the mage, excited by stories of magic and battles. A young boy watched Kazuki closely and began to imagine becoming strong like him. Encouraged by the idea, the other children eagerly declared they wanted to protect their home as well. Seeing their enthusiasm, Kazuki knelt beside them with a gentle smile, while the mage quietly observed. After the journey ended, the mage reflected that Lord Lambert would likely be satisfied with the report. Companions praised Kazuki's performance, recognizing his efforts during the mission, as they headed back toward the city. After examining the details, he acknowledged that Kazuki had performed even better than expected. Curious about the results, Paul eagerly asked about the expedition and Kazuki's performance. Later, Kazuki assisted by carrying magical tools meant for repairs. His companions seemed confused that he was already working again despite just arriving. Others pointed out that the smaller duties could easily be handled by someone else. Kazuki stepped inside while the Lord calmly prepared to speak with him about the recent mission. Lord Lambert informed Kazuki that he had reviewed the report and considered the results impressive. Despite the praise, Kazuki humbly explained that the squad had supported him throughout the mission. Fighting alongside his squad had allowed him to face danger without being alone. Young Mage appreciated the opportunity to take part in the expedition and valued the experience gained with the group. Lambert then reminded him that proper rest was necessary after such work. Soon after, Lord Paul cheerfully announced that the expedition's completion meant everyone would receive 7 days of rest. With excitement filling the room, Paul suggested celebrating with good food and drinks. The mage observed Kazuki standing beside Lord Lambert and noticed how much he had changed since their first meeting. Hardships of the expedition seemed to have strengthened him rather than weigh him down. Watching from a distance, she believed the experience had truly helped Kazuki move forward. 1 week later, Kazuki returned to the castle and politely requested an audience with Lord Lambert. During the meeting, Lambert explained that he intended to give Kazuki a certain test. Lord Lambert informed Kazuki that the higher authorities had noticed his expedition report. Lambert explained that the royal court's magic marshal wished to meet him. Kazuki accepted the situation calmly and prepared himself for the examination that would determine his future role. Soon after, he arrived at the grand hall of the palace, where the test was scheduled to begin immediately. A young mage enters the palace corridor alone. His steps echo through the wide hall as he studies the unfamiliar surroundings. He reaches a grand chamber with statues and staircases. The palace interior looks vast and silent. From above, a cloaked figure secretly watches him from the balcony. An attack suddenly crashes down from above, striking the floor with explosive force and shaking the hall. The hidden attacker reveals himself after the ambush, confident that the trap has begun. A magic circle forms behind him as he prepares a defensive spell, protecting his body and stopping the debris from striking him. Enemy prepares another move, pushing the confrontation into a direct battle. Dark energy gathers above the attacker as a large magic circle appears. From the circle, a massive thunder beast bursts forward, rushing toward the mage with violent speed. Without hesitation, the mage releases a sharp wind attack that collides with the beast, striking it head-on. The battle continues inside the palace hall as the cloaked attacker leaps down with a weapon raised. Attacker presses forward, convinced he has finally found the right target. Instead of falling for the attack, the mage shifts his body and avoids the blow. While the fight moves across the floor, the observing official steps forward and reveals himself as Crimbert, the overseer of the Imperial Mages. Crimbert interrupts the clash, apologizing for the sudden ambush. The young mage listens carefully as the meaning of the sudden ambush becomes clearer. Even while tired, the mage reacts quickly and blocks the attack, proving his skill under pressure. After the exchange, the attacker finally reveals himself as Hoodedman, the captain of the Special Forces. The mage accepts the situation with a calm expression, showing confidence in his ability. Crimbert steps forward again, deciding the fight needs proper rules before the test continues. Lutz must land 3 hits on Hoodman to pass the test and prove his worth. He focuses and prepares himself, determined to give everything he has during the challenge. Hudeman grins fiercely, confident in his strength as both fighters take their positions across the damaged hall. With calm authority, Krimbert signals the start of the test. The moment begins as Hudeman charges forward, while Lutz stands ready to face the powerful Captain Head. Unswirling strike rushes across the hall and forces Hudeman backward as the sudden attack tears through the air. Krimbert watches calmly while the result becomes clear. Lutz successfully lands the first hit, proving his quick judgment and surprising the captain. Inside a damaged hall, Lutz faces a Special Forces officer while dust covers the broken floor. Without chanting, Lutz lifts his hand and releases a fire spell toward the officer. Surprise appears as he begins to realize Lutz's ability surpasses the others. Planting his staff into the ground, the officer activates a magic circle. Moving straight through the pressure, Lutz launches a powerful strike, proving the officer's challenge cannot stop his advance. Lutz activates advanced body enhancement magic, strengthening his speed and endurance. Their movements become fast and direct as they close the distance, turning the test into a close combat clash. He reacts quickly, raising his guard while realizing the opponent's speed is greater than expected. A series of rapid strikes follows as the officer presses the attack. Steady focus returns to Lutz as a magic circle forms behind him. Power gathers around his body, preparing the next decisive move. Wind magic bursts outward as the officer unleashes a powerful storm attack. Another spell follows immediately. Continuous wind magic forms claw, like currents that rush toward Lutz. Frozen spikes spread forward, forming a thick barrier meant to block the incoming storm. Pressure builds as the attack grinds against the barrier, trying to break through the layered wall. A final wind spear spirals forward, tearing through the battlefield while shattered ice and debris scatter across the ground. Shattered ice spreads across the ground as the previous attack finishes. Lutz notices the hit and keeps his focus, while the officer calmly prepares for the next exchange. His weapon swings down as he closes the distance, turning the moment into a direct counterattack. Surprise appears on Lutz's face as the officer presses the attack without hesitation. Moving even faster than before, the officer drives another strike toward Lutz, forcing him to react quickly as the battle intensifies. Inside the training hall, Hudeman suddenly rushes forward and swings his weapon toward Lutz. A rapid exchange follows as Hudeman unleashes a flurry of strikes. Hudeman's speed proves overwhelming, making it difficult to gain a safe position in the fight. The relentless pursuit keeps the battle close and intense. In response, Lutz summons a massive stone guardian from the ground, creating a powerful shield between himself and the incoming assault. Lutz endures the incoming strike as wind pressure tears across the battlefield. Debris scatters in every direction as the impact tears through the shattered floor. A small smile appears, showing he has endured the attack and remains ready to continue. The officer rises from the clash with fierce determination. His stance tightens as he prepares to push the test further. Both fighters pause for a brief moment. Mutual focus fills the space between them as the intense trial continues. Before their attacks collide, a commanding voice suddenly stops the battle, turns as the supervising officer reminds them that the fight was only a test. The tension in the hall begins to fade. He calmly explains that very few in the Empire could fight evenly against Hudeman. Lutz successfully passes the trial and receives appointment as a new Special Forces soldier. The officer studies him closely, reminding him that loyalty to the Empire will now define his future. Becoming a Special Forces soldier marks a new step in his life within the Empire. Without wasting time, Lutz quickly leaves the hall to report the result to the other troops. The supervising officer calmly informs Hudeman that Lutz will now serve under him. Meanwhile, Lutz moves confidently through the corridor, already thinking about the path ahead in the Special Forces. A bright smile appears on Lutz's face as anticipation grows. After receiving news of his promotion to Special Trooper, Lutz rushed through the Grand Hall of the Imperial headquarters. Upon entering a nearby room, he noticed that no soldiers or staff were present. The space felt unusually empty. Soon the pen finished writing a short instruction telling Lutz to follow Fina's footprints. Confusion crossed his mind as he looked at the strange message. To investigate further, Lutz activated a tracking spell called Footprint Log. Magic spread across the floor and revealed a faint trail left behind earlier. Guided by the glowing marks, he walked along the hallway. Each step in the trail pointed clearly ahead, leading him deeper into the building where Fina had gone. Following the glowing trail, Lutz arrived before a large door at the end of the hall. The footprint stopped near the entrance, suggesting the path continued beyond it. Being accepted as a special trooper had happened so quickly that he wondered if this was another test prepared for him. Another possibility appeared in his thoughts. Something dangerous might be waiting behind the door, perhaps even stronger than Sergeant Hudeman. Determination replaced his uncertainty. Lutz prepared himself and chose to face whatever awaited beyond the door. Instead of danger, the room burst with celebration. Fina and the other soldiers revealed themselves, welcoming Lutz with a surprise ceremony to honor his promotion. Fina smiled warmly and informed Lutz that he had successfully passed the test. The strange situation earlier had been part of an evaluation. During the moment, Fina noticed that he was still holding his staff and casually pointed it out. Suddenly, something flew across the room toward Lutz. A large lobster was thrown in his direction, forcing him to react quickly to avoid being hit. The chef, Mr. John, appeared with a cheerful expression. He explained that everyone was celebrating Lutz's promotion and had prepared a feast for the occasion. Lutz joined the table as the soldiers encouraged him to eat well and enjoy the celebration. Celebration continued as the soldiers raised their mugs together. Fina happily announced both Lutz's promotion and the farewell party for the second squad. At the table, Lutz tasted the food while the others encouraged him to enjoy the meal. The soldiers reminded him that special troopers even had their own rooms. Meanwhile, the chef appeared again with excitement, promising to cook more dishes whenever needed. Later, 2 respected figures arrived at the gathering. Their presence quickly drew attention from the soldiers inside the hall. Lutz stepped forward and greeted them respectfully. One of them congratulated him on his promotion, and the 2 shared a firm handshake. The mood around him seemed different from the rest of the cheerful hall, making the situation slightly awkward. She reminded him that he was standing in front of a newly promoted special trooper and should behave with proper respect. Reminder quickly changed the atmosphere. Realizing that Lutz now outranked him, Paul immediately tried to show respect. Seeing the awkward scene, Lutz calmly told everyone not to treat him too differently. He also noticed that Fina had already become quite drunk during the celebration. Even so, Paul refused to stay discouraged. Determination filled his mind as he vowed to hold an even bigger celebration once he achieved success himself. As the celebration continued, bright fireworks suddenly filled the night sky outside the large window. Colorful bursts continued to appear high above the building, surprising everyone in the room and drawing their attention to the sky. Amid the excitement, Paul encouraged Lutz to keep climbing the ranks and promised to support him along the way. While holding a drink, Lutz reflected on the short time he had spent with the Magic Corps. Soon the farewell party reached its end. Lutz felt genuine happiness after the long evening of celebration with his comrades. As the celebration slowly settled, the soldiers began clearing the tables and carrying away the dishes. Later, Lutz sat beside Fina at a quieter table. The lively noise in the hall had faded, and the remaining guests spoke calmly while finishing their drinks. After some time passed, Fina gently reached toward Lutz and asked for a private moment. Once the gathering fully ended, Lutz looked at her with slight confusion while noticing her relaxed behavior, wondering if the celebration had left her a little drunk. After the party, Kazuki is guided through a quiet hall by the new guide. Soon after, Kazuki meets 2 soldiers waiting for him. They acknowledge that both sides are busy but still have matters to discuss. They gather around a table. The soldiers comment on Kazuki's rapid rise and strength. The discussion shifts to the difficulty of his new role. Kazuki listens calmly, realizing he still does not fully understand the duties ahead. Inside the quiet hall, Kazuki reflects on the recent decision made by Lord Crimbert and Sergeant Hoodman. Later, a soldier explains that Kazuki's duties will likely involve dangerous missions. During the meeting, Lutz searches through his belongings in confusion. At last, he discovers a small box containing a shining talisman made from rare ore. Kazuki studies the talisman quietly, understanding it as a symbol of trust for the challenges ahead. The girl accepts the talisman with a gentle smile. She carefully holds the small item, promising to protect it well. A sense of reassurance appears between them as they prepare to part ways. Buildings rest in silence, while Kazuki reflects on the events of the evening and the new experiences waiting for him. Next day arrives. Kazuki walks away from the large building. The woman studies him closely, recognizing the young man by name. A female officer studies Kazuki carefully, after hearing his name. Without warning, the officer grabs Kazuki and pulls him closer, inspecting his face directly. She quickly questions his intentions, demanding to know why he planned to act alone. After reading the document, the officer introduces herself as Rina, assigned by Lord Crimbert to guide him. Rina studies Kazuki again, before acknowledging his honesty and reminding him to stay careful. She walks beside Kazuki and explains her current duty of guarding the royal family. Her reputation within the unit is well known, especially after hearing that he managed to stand his ground against Sergeant Hoodman. Thinking back on the encounter, Kazuki quietly reflects on the battle. Expression shows clear frustration as she warns him about lacking confidence in his own abilities, reminds him that confidence will be necessary as he rises through the ranks and begins leading others. While Rina continues explaining the responsibilities of the special unit, Kazuki suddenly comments on her appearance. Embarrassment and irritation appear at the same time as she realizes what he just said. Meanwhile, Rina realizes that he truly ignored most of what she had been explaining earlier. Rina reminds Kazuki that the building ahead serves as the command center of the special unit. Inside, Rina formally presents Kazuki to Lord Crimbert, who calmly welcomes the young recruit into the room. Standing before Lord Crimbert, Kazuki receives his first assignment as a special trooper and prepares himself to face the mission ahead. Morning light spreads across a quiet farm near the village. Several horses stand calmly beside a stone stable, while an old farmer carries a heavy container toward a wooden gate. Sudden tension appears on the farmer's face as a strange presence fills the air. Wide eyes reveal his growing fear while he looks toward the source of the disturbance. Without warning, a violent force strikes the ground. Dust and wind burst outward as a massive creature crashes into the field. Elsewhere, a grand building stands under the dark sky near the structure. A horned demon appears with a fierce expression. Reports describe the creature as a high-level monster capable of destroying everything along its path. A maid stands nearby while the older officer explains that the situation is dangerous enough to consider sending an experienced sergeant. Hearing this, the young officer reacts with determination. His expression tightens as he immediately accepts the responsibility. Details about the mission quickly follow. The target location lies about 10 days away by horse, far from the capital. The older officer quickly stops him before he can leave. He reminds the young man that proper preparation is necessary before starting such a dangerous mission. Special equipment is then provided for the journey. Among the items are magical teleportation sticks that allow instant travel through space. The young officer raises the teleportation staff and confirms his departure. Back in the palace, several people watch the fading light from the teleportation magic. Some wonder if he will arrive safely, while others quietly worry about the difficulty of the mission. Far away, a magic circle suddenly opens in a forest clearing. The young officer appears in midair as the spell releases him from the teleportation. Landing carefully, he surveys the surroundings. The forest feels quiet, yet something seems wrong. While examining the scene, a large shadow slowly rises from the trees behind him, revealing the presence of a dangerous creature nearby. A massive horned demon steps out from the forest shadows. Bones and remains scatter across the ground, revealing the aftermath of its previous victims. Turning around, the young officer calmly faces the monster. His eyes remain steady, despite the terrifying sight. His body moves quickly across the ground as he closes the distance and strikes toward the demon's face with a fast attack. At the same moment, the young officer activates a magic circle, releasing a forceful spell to block the attack. Elsewhere in a distant town, people walk calmly along the street. Among the crowd, the young officer moves forward with his staff in hand. Teleportation staff could not send him directly inside the palace, so he politely requests permission to pass through the gate and report his results. Inside the building, a maid opens the door and allows him to enter. She quickly realizes who he is and reacts with surprise. In a dining room, Lord Crimbert calmly eats his meal when the young officer suddenly appears. Without delay, the young officer walks forward carrying the demon's massive horn as proof. His report is simple and direct, confirming that the mission has already been completed. The mission should have taken several days, yet he finished it almost immediately, leaving everyone stunned by the speed of his success. As he enters the room carrying the demon's horn, a senior knight suddenly reacts and draws his weapon, testing the young officer's strength with a quick strike. Steel clashes loudly as the young officer blocks the attack. The impact shakes the room while others watch in surprise. His confident expression shows clear recognition of the young man's ability after hearing that the monster was defeated so quickly. Seeing this talent, the senior knight decides to bring the young officer along on his next mission. A young squad leader named Phinia slips while stepping across the snowy ground during an investigation. She quickly regains her balance and laughs at her own clumsiness. The team continues surveying the frozen region. Phinia carefully reports that no monster activity has been detected in the area. They move deeper into the icy landscape, observing cliffs and snow-covered plains while continuing the investigation far away. Roy spends another uneventful day at the fortress, bored with routine duties. A magical letter bird suddenly arrives, bringing unexpected news. Magical message arrives with urgent orders for an emergency mission. Captain Hoodman immediately prepares to move out, while Roy listens carefully. Later, Roy relaxes in the dormitory cafeteria and enjoys a meal prepared by a skilled cook. The peaceful moment lifts his mood after many dull days of routine work. Just as he begins eating, the door bursts open and Captain Hoodman storms inside. Without wasting time, the captain grabs Roy and announces the mission. A teleportation staff activates instantly, pulling Roy away before he can react. Moments later, both appear inside a teleportation circle, arriving at an unfamiliar location to begin the urgent mission. Roy and Captain Hoodman arrive at a vast frozen valley filled with sharp ice formations. Cold wind blows across the cliffs as Roy realizes they have arrived at a place called the Frozen Mist Gorge. Captain Hoodman quickly moves forward and recognizes Oscar Lutz, a soldier who once served in Phinea's unit before joining the Special Forces. The captain senses trouble and urges everyone to hurry, believing Phinea's squad may already be in danger. Nearby, Phineas struggles against a massive two-headed serpent while desperately defending herself. Phineas and her squad struggle to hold a defensive barrier against the giant serpent. The barrier protects the path leading toward the nearby town, preventing the monster from advancing. While the creature continues attacking, Phineas pushes forward and reinforces the barrier with her staff. Determination fills Phineas as she prepares another spell and confronts the enormous serpent again, refusing to step back despite the overwhelming threat. Meanwhile, the squad's formation collapses, and their healing support begins falling behind during the chaotic battle. Exhausted but resolute, Phineas refuses to surrender as the two-headed serpent lunges toward her. Phineas struggles to maintain the weakening barrier while facing the two-headed serpent. Exhaustion spreads across her face, yet she continues pushing her magic forward. Roy and Captain Hoodman emerge from the portal, instantly assessing the chaotic battlefield and the massive creature threatening the squad. Without hesitation, Captain Hoodman launches forward and attacks the enormous serpent, drawing its attention away from the exhausted squad members. Roy quickly studies the monster and realizes they are facing a dangerous silver-eyed serpent known for hunting humans. Seeing Phineas still fighting alone, Roy urgently signals her to fall back while they prepare to take over the battle. After quickly assessing the situation, he decides to take command of the battlefield and shifts the squad's focus toward immediate survival. A clear strategy spreads across the group. Roy orders the team to protect the healers, while others hold the monster's attention. The soldiers respond and reposition themselves according to Roy's instructions. Defensive spells rise behind the formation while support mages prepare to reinforce the front line. Captain Hoodman steps forward, determined to defeat the serpent and bring every squad member home safely. Together, Roy and the captain charge toward the two-headed serpent, beginning a coordinated counterattack. A frozen battlefield stretches across the scene as two massive serpent-like monsters rise from the ice. Suddenly, the warrior launches into the air and rushes toward one of the serpents. His body moves swiftly above the battlefield as the creature opens its jaws, preparing to attack. The powerful strike crashes directly into the monster's head. Strong impact forces the beast backward, while debris and ice scatter around the point of contact rather than stopping. The warrior quickly adjusts his stance and continues advancing, keeping pressure on the injured creature while staying ready for another move. Strengthened by the spell, the warrior drives forward again and pushes the battle closer to victory. Two warriors stand before the giant serpents, while the battlefield remains covered in ice. Heavy blow lands against its body, sending a shock through the creature while the surrounding ice shatters from the force. The fighter notices his movement slowing because of the freezing ground. Even so, he keeps attacking, pushing through the cold conditions that limit his speed. After assessing the situation, the warriors decide to split their targets. One prepares to face the darker serpent, while the other focuses on the white one, planning a coordinated attack. A magic circle activates behind them, while the serpent opens its jaws and lunges forward, meeting the warriors as their attack sequence starts. Two warriors charge across the frozen ground at the same moment, beginning their planned attack. Large magic circle forms in the air as wind magic bursts forward. The attack crashes against the serpent, while one warrior swings his weapon downward, striking the creature's head during the opening. Suddenly, thick wooden branches erupt from the ground and spread across the battlefield nearby. A mage channels more power through a glowing magic circle. The branches tighten around the battlefield, creating an opportunity for the next coordinated strike. Taking advantage of the moment, the warrior leaps high above the serpent and drives his weapon downward. The young warrior notices the captain rushing forward and signals him to strike directly at the monster's skull. The captain leaps high above the creature and brings his weapon down with tremendous force. Strike cuts deeply, splitting the monster and forcing its enormous jaws apart. Observers nearby realize the captain's enhanced attack has nearly torn the creature in two. As the wounded serpents thrash wildly, powerful wind and flame magic combine into a raging cyclone that tears through the battlefield and slams into the monsters. With the creatures weakened, the captain launches another rapid strike from above, driving lightning fast power downward to finish the battle. Its enormous body stops moving as the impact spreads across the icy field, marking the end of the fierce battle. Relief spreads among the surviving soldiers. Support mages lower their staffs while the warriors look toward the fallen monster. Suddenly, the surrounding ice begins to crack and collapse. One warrior quickly warns the others and urges everyone to retreat before the unstable ground gives way. After escaping the collapsing area, the group gathers and thanks the fighters who led the battle. Later, inside a quiet room, officers discuss the incident. Reports confirm that the squad survived an encounter with the dangerous silver-eyed serpent and managed to return safely. Inside the base, the captain walks through the hall after the battle. His expression shows relief and satisfaction, recognizing the young warrior's ability during the fight against the serpent. Attention turns toward the warrior whose actions during the battle left a strong impression on the captain. Kazuki receives unexpected time off from duty. The sudden break leaves him confused, since most of his life has been spent following strict orders and constant work. Nearby, a seasoned soldier continues handling weapons and equipment without slowing down. Years of missions and constant preparation have made this routine normal for him. However, in the kingdom, steady work and daily deployments rarely happen, making the idea of a normal routine feel unrealistic. Determination soon replaces hesitation as the soldier decides to prepare for the next mission through intense training. Motivation grows inside Kazuki, leading him to join the training and swing his weapon with powerful force. The spell spreads across the corridor and sharp crystals rise from the floor. A nearby girl walks directly into the area just as the magic finishes spreading. Shock appears on her face as she realizes she stepped into the aftermath of Lutz's attack. Lutz quickly notices who it is and recognizes her. Unable to stop the result of the spell in time, Lutz watches as the girl falls into the cluster of crystals. Later, the girl returns to Lutz with a basket of bread. Gratitude motivates her to offer the food as thanks for helping her previously. Meanwhile, the girl firmly expresses her determination to show appreciation for his help. Fina shows Lutz a basket filled with baked goods from her favorite shop. The bread is well known for its taste, and Lutz quickly tries one. Seeing his reaction, Fina mentions that there are many other tasty places in the area. She suggests visiting them together next time. Happiness spreads across Fina's face after hearing his answer. Her excitement grows as she imagines showing him more places around the city. Later, Lutz heads toward the library. Since he plans to continue training, studying useful information from books seems like a good step. Inside the building, he notices unusual activity nearby. The hallway feels busier than normal, making Lutz pause and wonder what is happening. The shelves contain many titles that were unavailable in his former kingdom. Suddenly, a strange noise echoes through the library. Books begin shifting on the shelves, and the floor trembles slightly. Moments later, a powerful vortex suddenly forms in the middle of the room. The swirling force expands rapidly, pulling nearby objects toward it. After the chaos ends, Lutz finds himself lying on the ground. Dust settles around him while confusion fills his mind as he tries to understand what just happened. Looking around, he realizes he is no longer in the same place. A quiet and unfamiliar room surrounds him, leaving Lutz alone in a mysterious location. After standing up, Lutz examines the surrounding shelves. The books appear much older than those in the library he visited earlier. Unusual design and symbols on the cover immediately draw his curiosity, prompting him to open it and inspect the contents. As he reads further, complex magic circles and strange notes fill the pages. The information describes powerful magic created when mind, body. More pages reveal that the book describes the true core of sorcery and a secret art of magic rarely mentioned anywhere else. While continuing to read, Lutz suddenly senses someone approaching from behind, breaking the quiet atmosphere of the room. Reports suggest that several people may have returned to the city, yet no one has been able to locate them. Concern spreads among the group as they realize something unusual has occurred. More personnel are requested, and several soldiers receive orders to head into the city to continue looking for the missing individuals. Determination grows as the commander demands that the targets be found as soon as possible. The boy proudly demonstrates the result of his training. His teacher observes the progress and acknowledges the improvement in his magic. During the lesson, the teacher continues guiding the students while keeping an eye on their condition, ensuring that their practice remains under control. A calm man enjoys his day off while resting quietly. At the same time, a powerful aura begins spreading from him unnoticed. Inside a restricted archive room, Lutz studies a book among tall shelves filled with old documents. A young officer named Rena appears at the doorway. Recognition crosses her face when she hears his voice. Standing before him, Rena looks down at Lutz with a serious expression. Her presence makes the situation tense as she questions his reason for being there. Embarrassment spreads across Lutz's face as he hurriedly explains himself. His actions were not intentional. After listening, Rena studies him quietly. The explanation seems reasonable to her. Eventually she accepts that his presence inside the archive likely happened by accident. Rina nervously adjusts the front of her uniform while standing near Lutz. The change in her appearance catches his attention. Lutz suddenly notices something else. Dust from the old archive room covers her clothes. A moment of silence follows as Rina thinks about something important. Meanwhile, Lutz remembers a question he has been wanting to ask her. The two walk together through a quiet corridor. Lutz explains that he received something from a kind member of the Dahlia Magic Corps and wants to return the kindness. He then asks for Rina's opinion about choosing a suitable gift. Rina listens quietly but becomes uncertain about how to respond. Lutz stands inside the archive room, looking at the shelves filled with books and documents. Sunlight passes through the window and lights the quiet space. Later he arrives in the town square, where people gather for a small contest. A participant throws a knife toward a target while others watch. Nearby, a man supervising the activity explains the rules while speaking with one of the participants. Supervisor observes the results carefully, making sure everyone has taken their turn before continuing. While watching from the side, Lutz suddenly hears someone call for him from behind. He turns around in surprise. The blade he holds is covered with dye made from crushed nuts. Anyone struck by the coated wooden sword is considered caught. Curious about the activity, Lutz takes the wooden blade to look at it. The smell from the dye is strong and unpleasant. Realizing he has been chosen as the demon in the game, Lutz watches as the participants scatter and run through the streets, determined to catch them. Lutz activates his magic. A strong wind forms around him and pushes his body forward at high speed. The sudden burst of speed sends him rushing past one of the runners. As the chase continues through the square, while chasing the runners, Lutz loses control of his speed and crashes into one of the participants. Both of them fall to the ground from the sudden impact. The runner struggles to stand but soon collapses again, unable to continue moving. Other participants gather nearby and comment on Lutz's unexpected strength during the chase. Their teacher approaches and explains the situation to Lutz. The man mentions that he sometimes teaches magic to the group and asks Lutz for his name after noticing his outfit. After hearing that Lutz is a court magician, the teacher greets him respectfully and shakes his hand. Moments later, a sudden splash of water bursts nearby, startling everyone in the area. After the sudden splash nearby, the teacher pauses and senses something unusual in the air. Looking at Lutz more carefully, the teacher feels the strong flow of magic around him. The power is far greater than what he expected. Introducing himself as Musil, he greets Lutz with clear interest. Musil then turns with a confident smile and suggests continuing the game. He proposes that the match will end only when Lutz manages to catch him with the wooden sword. The two move into the open square as the townspeople watch from a distance. While observing Lutz, Musil quietly considers that the young magician might possess extraordinary potential. Musil stands calmly in the square, observing Lutz with interest. He quietly concludes that Lutz may be the most powerful mage he has ever met. Near the town's clock tower, a man quietly observes a young swordsman walking through the street. Earlier, he sensed an unusual surge of magic coming from that direction. Soon after, the man announces a simple challenge. The young swordsman must strike him before he reaches the top of the tower, and success will earn a reward. Confusion fills the swordsman's mind as he tries to understand the sudden proposal. The unexpected reward only deepens his uncertainty. Without delay, the test begins. The man advances calmly while the swordsman prepares his attack. In the next instant, a massive wind shield erupts around the man. The swordsman freezes, stunned by the speed and power of the spell. The young swordsman strikes the wind shield with his weapon. Although he knows his magic can break such defenses, the barrier continues to expand around the man. Instead of pushing forward, he climbs higher along the structure, using the wind currents and nearby beams to move upward. Reaching the rooftops, he prepares to attack from above. However, the man remains calm and releases another spell, summoning a rising dragon-shaped flame to intercept the attack. The impact forces the swordsman to raise an earth wall for protection. Even so, the violent power sends him crashing back. Falling to the ground, he realizes the man predicted his strategy from the beginning. After the violent clash, the young swordsman lands on a rooftop and watches his opponent calmly walking below. The swordsman understands that closing the distance will be impossible unless he acts first, forcing him to launch another attack. Rising into the air again, he unleashes a massive ring of fire and sends it downward. In response, the man releases an even larger wave of flame, meeting the attack head. On collision of fire erupts violently across the area. Overwhelming force pushes the swordsman back as the man's power dominates the clash. Breathing heavily, the young swordsman realizes the difference in strength and begins searching for another method to win. Standing at a distance, the young swordsman recalls a powerful spell he once read about in books. Energy begins gathering around him as he calls upon the power of creation. Magic flows through his body while the surroundings react to the sudden surge of force. Overwhelming power spreads rapidly across his entire body. His opponent quickly notices the dangerous change and realizes the spell is far more serious than expected. Moments later, countless spiraling blades descend from above, forming a massive magical assault aimed directly at the man below. The attack crashes into the ground with violent force as the man braces himself against the impact. After the massive attack strikes the ground, the young swordsman stands in shock, realizing he actually managed to release the powerful spell. Moments later, the man calmly appears again, sitting nearby without any serious injury. Laughter echoes as he recognizes the rare secret magic the swordsman just used. With a relaxed expression, the man admits he had only heard rumors about such ability before. Before the swordsman can react further, someone suddenly arrives and calls out loudly, claiming they had finally found him. A girl named Rina appears with several armored soldiers standing firmly as she confronts the man. The young swordsman is stunned by the sudden action, unable to understand why she would show such respect toward the man he had just fought. They reveal the man's identity as Lord Sieg von M. Faisal, the Empire's court minister of magic, and the commander of the entire imperial magical force. While the young swordsman struggles to process this revelation, a messenger arrives with urgent news from the palace. Reports soon describe a dangerous creature appearing in the mountains, a fire dragon with crimson wings and golden eyes. The massive red dragon spreads its wings across the battlefield, announcing a new threat to the Empire. In the wilderness, a red dragon emerges as a terrifying threat. The creature commands fire and spreads destruction across the land. Inside the capital, the alarming report reaches the castle. Crimbert reacts immediately as the news of the dragon spreads among the officials. Soon after, Lord M. Faisal enters the hall to learn the reason for the urgent call. Attendants and soldiers gather as the situation begins to unfold. According to the report, the red dragon appeared in the mountainous region near the Bullheart Marquis' castle, placing the surrounding area at risk. Recognizing the danger, Crimbert decides on immediate action. Troops must be prepared at once, as the nearby city could soon face the dragon's attack. Inside the castle hall, the officials continue discussing the dragon threat. Sending soldiers alone may not be enough to stop such a powerful creature. After the discussion settles, the commander turns his attention to Lutz. Remembering his past achievements, he decides that the young mage deserves recognition for his efforts. Responsibility for the dragon mission is then entrusted to Lutz. The order places him at the center of the coming operation. Soon after, the announcement surprises those nearby. Instead of a simple assignment, a promotion is declared. The decision becomes clear as Lutz is officially appointed as the new Magic General. Announcement shocks the room. Becoming a Magic General is an extremely rare honor, and only 12 individuals hold that position in the entire empire. Memories of his secret magic art surface in Lutz's mind. The power he once used felt different from ordinary spells, flowing through his entire body. Noticing Lutz's hesitation, the commander reassures him. Confidence slowly replaces his anxiety as Lutz prepares himself for the responsibility ahead. With a confident smile, the commander grants him the title of Provisional Magic General. The mission against the Red Dragon will determine Lutz's future. Success will earn him full recognition as a true Magic General. Lutz accepts the mission without hesitation. Confidence replaces his earlier surprise as he takes responsibility for dealing with the Red Dragon threatening the region. A map of the surrounding area is spread across the table, while the situation is reviewed carefully. Before departing, Lutz receives further instructions. Soldiers will remain prepared while he leads the operation. Soon after, the special operatives arrive near the outskirts of the city. Each of them carries proven experience and skill for dangerous assignments. He prepares for the journey by wearing a robe designed to resist blades and extreme heat, equipment meant to help him face the Red Dragon ahead. 2 elite operatives, Rivero and Kornev, are assigned to assist the mission. Both soldiers acknowledge the order and prepare to follow Lutz's command during the operation against the dragon. While meeting them, Lutz reflects on his new position as a provisional magic general. He recalls that 3 subordinates were supposed to support him. Before investigating the dragon, Lutz is informed that they must first meet Marquis Bloomheart, the ruler responsible for the land. Rivero specializes in earth magic, while Kornev uses water magic, which may prove useful against a fire-based dragon. Upon arriving at the castle, Marquis Bloomheart welcomes them and explains that the sudden appearance of the dragon has caused panic across the region. Panic spreads through the room as he reports that a terrible incident has just occurred, drawing everyone's attention. At the same time, the red dragon descends upon the nearby city. The massive creature sweeps over the walls as destruction spreads across the streets below. Dragon's attack happens so suddenly that the safety of the residents cannot be confirmed. raising fears that many people may still be trapped. Known subordinate is sent to report the emergency while the others prepare to move toward the battlefield without delay. As they prepare to depart, a flying magic carpet suddenly appears above them. Its arrival suggests that the third subordinate has finally joined the mission. Lutz stands on the airship while preparing to confront a powerful dragon. Ruins cover the land below, showing the destruction left by the monster. Without wasting time, Lutz decides to move toward the battlefield. Saving people remains his main concern, so delay is not an option. Suddenly, a strange presence appears beside them. Magic activates nearby, and a figure moves rapidly across the deck. Soon the mysterious figure explains the sudden appearance. Stealth magic had been active, hiding their presence earlier. After witnessing the ability used, Lutz feels impressed by the newcomer's skill. The surprising arrival leaves a strong impression on him. The newcomer explains that stealth magic kept their presence hidden the entire time. Even though 3 people were standing nearby, no one had noticed them. Soon after, Lutz signals the team to begin moving. The mission cannot wait any longer. The group quickly prepares to act while the newcomer shows eagerness to work together. From the airship, the team observes the devastated town below. Buildings lie in ruins while the dragon moves through the area. While watching the dragon, the group realizes the city's magical barrier has already been broken. Inside the ruined streets, frightened survivors try to escape the spreading flames. Fire blocks many paths, trapping families among the collapsing buildings. The team quickly descends from the airship toward the ruined town. Lutz reminds everyone to follow the strategy they discussed earlier. Lutz explains the full plan before the attack begins. One member will guide civilians to safety, while creating defensive barriers. Soon after, Lutz confronts the dragon directly. A magic circle forms before him as he launches a powerful attack to draw the creature's focus. The dragon reacts immediately, roaring with intense hostility. Its violent energy spreads across the battlefield. Moments later, the dragon unleashes a massive blast of fire. Flames surge across the ground as the battle fully begins. Lutz calls out to Straight while facing the dragon directly. Instead of confronting the monster recklessly, he chooses to buy time and maintain the plan. Nearby, Straight suddenly freezes when the dragon appears close behind him. Fear spreads through his body as the enormous creature moves within striking distance. Doubt fills his mind as he wonders whether his stealth magic can affect such a powerful monster. Even while hidden, approaching the dragon seems almost impossible. Meanwhile, Lutz continues attacking without hesitation. His teammates notice his calm determination and realize everyone is fulfilling their assigned roles. Seeing this, Straight gathers his courage. Determined to support Lutz, he moves forward to act. Lutz lowers his stance while studying the battlefield. Flames and debris surround the area, making fire magic ineffective in such conditions. Rather than relying on his secret technique immediately, he searches for another solution that might turn the situation in their favor. The dragon suddenly speaks, revealing intelligence beyond that of an ordinary monster. With hostile intent, the dragon declares that it will not allow Lutz to stand before it. The revelation that the creature can speak shocks everyone nearby. Moments later, the dragon prepares another blast of fire. While Straight shouts a warning, Lutz remains standing in front of the incoming attack. Lutz stops his magic circle and calls out to the red dragon. Instead of attacking immediately, he attempts to interrupt the battle and shift the situation. Standing among the ruined buildings, Lutz faces the dragon and tries to calm the chaos spreading through the town. The dragon suddenly reacts and orders Lutz to move away. Its aggressive movement shows the creature has no intention of stopping the fight. A dragon crashes into the city walls, tearing through buildings and streets. Stone and dust scatter across the ruined ground. Relief spreads across the soldiers as they prepare to leave the danger zone and regroup with the rest of their allies. Stealth magic then hides their presence, allowing them to pass near the dragon without drawing attention. Suspicion grows in the dragon as it searches the surroundings. Silence follows, while the soldiers stay perfectly still, hoping to avoid discovery. Suddenly, the dragon slams its massive body into the ground, sending a violent shockwave across the battlefield. Rocks and debris burst into the air as the 2 soldiers are thrown off balance by the impact. Instinct takes over as one soldier reacts too quickly and moves. The sudden motion breaks their concealment, and both immediately realize the mistake that has exposed their position. At once, the dragon turns toward them, locking onto their location and preparing to strike. Powerful blast is released toward their direction while they attempt to resist the attack. After the explosion fades, one soldier stands ahead on the battlefield while the other watches from a distance. A young mage steps forward and activates a large magic circle behind him. Power gathers in his hand as he releases a massive flame meteor toward the dragon. However, the dragon resists the attack. The mage braces himself and raises his weapon and shield, preparing to withstand the force and continue fighting. Realizing the danger, he quickly orders the two soldiers to retreat. A floating magic platform appears, allowing them to escape the battlefield. The platform glides across the sky, carrying the group safely away from the dragon and the destroyed city. Moments later, the soldiers reach safety and gather together, relieved after surviving the battle. After escaping the battlefield, the injured soldier lowers his head in shame. Guilt weighs on him as he remembers the chaos during the fight. One companion recalls the moment earlier, when their hands met during the retreat. The trembling he felt then becomes clear now as he studies the soldier's uneasy expression. His fists tighten as frustration and fear surface. The real fear is not the dragon itself, but the pressure of failing when others depend on him. Memories of the battle return, showing how tension froze his body at the critical moment. At last, he openly admits his weakness while the others stand nearby, listening in silence. Frustration suddenly bursts out as the masked soldier insists that he and the mage are different. Calm words follow. In the Empire, rank rises through ability alone. Doubt or hesitation does not prevent someone from advancing if their skill proves useful. Talent alone feels meaningless. When hesitation makes every decision slower and every action uncertain, quiet understanding spreads among the group while his feelings are revealed. Gratitude appears from one companion who values his presence despite those doubts. A gentle smile appears in response. Action, not confidence, guides his choices, moving forward before fear has time to stop him. Deep down, realization begins forming that his actions during battle may reveal more courage than he believes. Memory returns to the moment earlier when danger approached. Without hesitation, he rushed forward to help, acting before fear had time to stop him. Understanding slowly spreads across the group. Courage sometimes appears through action rather than confidence, even when the person involved does not notice it. Sudden movement from the battlefield interrupts the moment. The red dragon rises again and begins heading toward a distant castle. Decision follows immediately. The group prepares to move together toward the new destination, ready to face whatever comes next. Determination appears across the young mage's face, despite the injuries from the earlier battle. Resolve replaces hesitation as he focuses on the threat still waiting ahead. Far in the distance, the red dragon circles above the ruined arena near the castle. Standing together on a floating platform, the group watches the creature's movement carefully. High above the fortress, a giant dragon spreads its wings and glides over the city. At the top of a tower, several warriors observe the dragon carefully. Straight stands among them, while the group studies the situation from above. Soon the team settles on a single plan. Lutz is selected to deliver the decisive strike because his firepower surpasses the others. Moments later, the strategy begins. Magical formations activate while the dragon flies closer to the battlefield. Suddenly, a powerful spell erupts forward. A massive surge of water magic crashes into the dragon, shaking the air as the attack strikes with overwhelming force. Rocks and debris scatter across the battlefield, while the massive creature struggles against the sudden barrier. From the castle roof, Lutz watches the battle unfold. Rivero and Kornev move below, drawing the red dragon's attention away from the city. Lutz steps forward toward the edge, focusing on the monster while maintaining his balance on the high structure. Fatigue spreads through Lutz as the pressure of the moment weighs on him. A brief memory of encouragement crosses his mind, pushing him to steady his grip on the weapon. Determination replaces hesitation. Lutz tightens his stance and gathers his strength, fixing his eyes on the battlefield as he prepares to deliver the decisive attack. Lutz leaps from the high structure toward the battlefield below. As he descends, he activates a concealment cloak, hiding his presence while moving rapidly through the air. Meanwhile, the red dragon remains alert and dangerous. Its strong body and sharp reflexes make any direct attack extremely risky. Taking advantage of that moment, Lutz rushes forward with great speed. His figure cuts through the air as he closes the distance toward the massive creature's head. From below, Straight unleashes a powerful roar while supporting the attack. With the opportunity created, a devastating blow lands against the dragon. The impact explodes across its body, shaking the battlefield as the final strike finally reaches its target. The wounded red dragon struggles across the battlefield, searching for the opponent that struck it. High above, complex magic circles appear in the sky. Lutz stands firmly on the tower while activating a powerful secret spell. Dragon is overwhelmed by the impact and slams violently into the ground, shaking the battlefield as rocks and dust explode outward. Red Dragon lies motionless, within a massive crater, while the warriors look down from the tower, realizing the monster has finally been defeated. Despite the dangerous battle and the bold actions taken, the question of punishment and responsibility begins to rise among those in power. Inside the castle hall, officials review the battle's outcome. Reports describe how the group confronted the red dragon before reinforcements could arrive. Near a large window, a noble quietly reflects on the situation. Another officer notices his unusual silence while observing his recent behavior. Elsewhere in the city, Lutz encounters his companions during a calm moment after the battle. As they walk together, the tension from the battle slowly fades. Suddenly, Straight rushes toward Lutz through the street, clearly eager to meet him after everything that happened. Without hesitation, Straight drops forward in a deep bow before Lutz. The gesture shows sincere respect for the bravery displayed during the battle against the dragon. Lutz stands calmly after the battle, reflecting on the events that just happened. Despite the victory, he admits that his journey is far from complete. Straight listens closely and becomes deeply moved by those words. Overwhelmed with admiration, he quickly declares his intention to follow Lutz and support him wherever he goes. Hey, note the strong impression Lutz's actions have left on others, realizing that his influence continues to grow after the battle with the Red Dragon. Inside the office of a high official, Lutz receives an important announcement about his career. The authority formally recognizes his accomplishments and grants him the title of Mage General. After the announcement, another officer explains that a celebration is traditionally held whenever a new Mage General is appointed. Thoughts about the upcoming party begin to occupy his mind as he considers possible guests. Memories of those who supported him earlier come back while he reviews the people who might attend. Among the names he recalls, Rave stands out as someone important to invite. The day of the celebration arrives at a large imperial hall filled with nobles and officials. Guests gather across the courtyard while the grand building stands decorated for the event. The newly promoted Mage General has not appeared yet, which causes concern among those hosting the celebration. One official grows irritated and demands to know Lutz's current whereabouts. A companion explains that during their special leave, they helped defend a city attacked by a red dragon. Moments later, Lutz finally arrives at the hall and apologizes for being late. Lutz finally reaches the party venue after a long journey. Travel delays forced him to arrive wearing the same clothes from his recent mission. Elsewhere in the hall, a young noblewoman hears that Lutz has arrived from the kingdom. Relief fills her mind after worrying about his absence earlier during the celebration. While moving through the crowded hall, the girl suddenly stumbles and nearly falls. A composed woman nearby catches her and lends a cloak to cover the stain on her dress. After the small incident, the woman quietly wonders where Lutz is inside the crowded party. Amid the busy celebration hall, a young girl suddenly spots someone familiar in the distance. Excitement quickly replaces her earlier worry as she rushes forward through the crowd. Her cheerful reaction shows how relieved she feels, now that he has finally arrived at the party. Nearby guests begin noticing the interaction between the two. Their behavior suggests that they already know each other quite well. During their conversation, the girl learns that Lutz defeated the Red Dragon with help from a talisman she once gave him. Across the hall, several guests watch Lutz with admiration, while the celebration continues around them. During the lively celebration, several nobles suddenly notice two high-ranking figures appearing inside the hall. They express pride in how far he has come and recognize the reputation he has built since arriving in the Empire. However, Lutz quickly grows irritated when the crowd gathers too closely around him. Without hesitation, he pushes through the group, treating anyone blocking his path as an obstacle. His unusual clothing also draws attention from the others, who find the outfit unfitting for such a formal gathering. Several guests react with confusion and disbelief as they watch the strange scene unfold. A close companion reassures Lutz and praises his appearance, insisting that his outfit still suits him. Embarrassed by the attention, Lutz quickly tries to move away from the teasing. Meanwhile, several guests gather around another figure, discussing Lutz's rise to the position of Mage General. Music fills the grand hall as the banquet continues. Nobles enjoy the performance while Lutz and the others take their seats at the table, observing the lively atmosphere of the party. Later, Lutz steps away from the crowd and quietly eats alone. The unfamiliar environment and constant attention begin to exhaust him. While resting, Lutz suddenly wonders whether Rave has already arrived at the gathering. After leaving the busy hall, Lutz walks along a quiet corridor to get some fresh air. Moonlight spreads across the balcony where a small child quietly stands near the railing. Lutz notices the figure and becomes curious about why a child is alone in such a place during the party. Instead of reacting harshly, Lutz approaches calmly and gently pats the child's head, trying to make the situation feel less tense. The child brightens and speaks with innocent excitement, asking if Lutz can help introduce them to their parents. A large crowd gathers in the imperial capital, filling the plaza with noise and movement. Worry grows as he realizes the promise to meet someone might not be fulfilled, leaving him confused in the middle of the crowd. Suddenly, a young man lifts the boy onto his shoulders. The higher view allows the child to finally look past the people and observe what is happening ahead. Elsewhere, a nearby observer notices the unusual commotion forming inside the crowd and quietly watches the situation. Two men standing close by hear the loud noise and assume someone in the crowd has started creating a scene. The young man studies the high ceiling of the hall and realizes it could provide a better view. Power gathers in his legs before he launches into the air. The sudden leap shocks the surrounding crowd as the pair rises far above the floor of the hall. Excitement fills the boy as he reaches upward and briefly touches the ceiling. The unusual experience makes him laugh with amazement. Officials and guests below quickly notice the reckless action. Several people stare upward in disbelief while the commotion spreads across the hall. Guards rush forward and demand that the young man stop immediately and put the boy down. The sudden landing draws attention across the hall. Guards and attendants rush forward while the crowd quickly steps aside. One of the attendants immediately kneels in deep respect before the approaching noble. The surrounding crowd follows the gesture, lowering themselves while the hall grows quiet, unsure why everyone has suddenly become so formal. The boy on his shoulders watches the scene with curiosity. The noble calmly studies the pair and begins addressing the young man directly, drawing attention to the boy sitting on his shoulders. Only then does the young man realize the truth. The person standing before him is Fried von Isbruck, the Emperor of the Empire. Realization slowly spreads across the young man's face as the situation becomes clear. Moments earlier he had been jumping across the hall with a child on his shoulders. An attendant quickly approaches and carefully lifts the Emperor down from the young man's shoulders. He explains the reason behind everything. Trust in the young man led him to believe he would be reunited with his parents if he could see farther across the hall. Officials nearby fall silent, struggling to process the unexpected situation involving the child emperor. The emperor then reveals that the young man once studied under his tutor and suggests moving somewhere quieter to continue the discussion. Inside a quieter hall, the emperor leads the young man and the boy toward a large painting on the wall. The atmosphere feels heavy as the emperor asks them to observe it carefully. The painting shows the former emperor and the empress standing together in formal attire. Emperor explains that both of his parents passed away due to illness. Hearing this, the young man behind him reacts with sudden shock. Realizing the misunderstanding, the young man lowers himself in deep regret for his reckless actions earlier. However, the boy reminds him of the earlier promise, insisting that he had been told he would meet his father and mother. Amusement spreads across his face as he realizes the misunderstanding about the earlier promise. He then calmly explains what he truly meant. Instead of meeting his parents directly, he had been referring to visiting their graves located outside the imperial capital. Lutz describes a peaceful lakeside area where the graves were built. It had once been one of his parents' favorite places, and he had visited it many times before. However, the young man soon learns that reaching the graves is no longer possible. Something has happened to the lake, making the place dangerous. The once beautiful area has turned into a mysterious poisonous swamp, filled with decaying land and strange remains. Standing near the window, the young emperor reflects on the crisis outside the capital. Hearing the situation, Oscar Lutz realizes why he was summoned. The emperor now looks toward him with expectation. Inside a quiet imperial hall, Lutz knelt respectfully before a high-ranking officer. Sunlight passed through the large windows while the young mage prepared to report an urgent matter. With a serious expression, Lutz explained that he had been occupied with suppressing monsters across the kingdom. Determination filled him as he considered another solution. A skilled expert in poison and medicine from the kingdom might be able to identify the cause and discover a cure. Hearing the proposal, the officer quickly accepted the idea and immediately ordered that the specialist be brought to the empire without delay. Not long after, Lutz began traveling toward the border with several companions. Before leaving the empire, Lutz informed the others that he had been assigned to travel to the kingdom. They had believed Lutz was still under restriction, yet he calmly explained that he had never been imprisoned and that the mission was personally ordered by the emperor. Concern appeared on his face as he thought about the risks surrounding Lutz's return to the kingdom. Although Lutz had risen to the rank of mage general in the empire, tension still existed between the empire and the kingdom. Worry crossed his mind that people in the kingdom might misunderstand Lutz's presence if he traveled alone. While preparing for the mission, one companion eagerly asked Lutz if anything else was needed. A group made entirely of men traveling together could easily attract suspicion. Bringing a woman along might make the group appear less suspicious during the trip. Soon, the group gathered and looked toward one person who seemed suitable for the role. Their attention quickly focused on a quiet girl standing among them. To her surprise, The others declared that she was the perfect choice for the task. The girl reacted with shock as she realized the mission might involve her. Some members seemed relieved by the decision, while the girl worried about leaving her duties behind as the journey approached. Curiosity about the kingdom had always remained in her mind, yet she never expected to travel there under such circumstances with Lutz and the others. A large bridge stretched across the water, marking the official border between the Empire and the kingdom. From a distant watchtower, guards noticed 3 figures approaching the border. Suspicion rose as they carefully observed the small group heading toward the crossing point. Without hesitation, the travelers stepped forward and crossed the bridge. Each step carried them closer to the kingdom they had come to visit. Moments later, excitement spread through the group. Their long journey had finally brought them to their destination as they officially arrived within the kingdom's territory. Just after entering the kingdom, several border soldiers quickly surrounded the travelers. The guards noticed the staff carried by Lutz and immediately recognized it as a magician's weapon. Seeing the tension rising, Lutz calmly stepped forward. Instead of showing hostility, he decided to handle the situation himself, while his companions waited nervously behind him. With a relaxed attitude, Lutz placed his arms around his companions and introduced them confidently. After hearing his introduction, the soldiers suddenly realized who he was. The name Oscar Lutz immediately caught their attention. Some of them recalled hearing about Oscar Lutz, a magician who once worked tirelessly at the kingdom's magic bureau. Trying to ease the tension, Lutz suddenly presented the group as a small family traveling together. Confusion spread among the companions as they struggled to keep up the performance. Lutz confidently continued the act, speaking proudly about the kingdom, while shaking hands with one of the guards, hoping the friendly approach would calm their doubts. After leaving the gate behind, the group walked forward together, relieved that their improvised act had helped them cross the border without further trouble. Lutz moved quickly along the road through the forest. His companions followed behind as the group continued deeper into the kingdom. Lutz turns his head after hearing a question about his friend. His expression stays calm while he carries his bag and staff. While walking across a stone bridge with 2 companions, Lutz explains about Dorothea. She works in the medical division of the Magic Bureau and is known as a passionate researcher. The companions imagine Dorothea's unusual personality. The thought suggests that someone with a strange and energetic nature will likely appear around Lutz. One companion suddenly scolds Lutz for planning to visit the Magic Bureau. Many people there know him, and his appearance could easily create trouble. He remembers Kemp's place and decides that location may offer a better chance to meet her. Unusual tool was crafted by Dorothea's father, a skilled maker, known for creating magical equipment. Beyond the forest, a quiet house stands alone in an open clearing. Birds circle above, while the calm surroundings show how distant the place is from the busy city. Soon after, Lutz and his companions reach the area and observe the house from the grass. The group feels relieved since the location seems safe and far from attention. Without hesitation, Lutz moves forward with energy and heads toward the house. His companions follow as he leads the way. The massive object crashes toward Lutz, striking the ground with force and breaking the quiet atmosphere around them. As the group approaches the house, a hidden mechanism suddenly activates. Chains rattle and a trap swings down from above. Inside the house, a man notices the disturbance. He pulls a bow and prepares to fire, believing someone has triggered the trap system surrounding his home. Outside, another trap launches from the ground and slides across the area. More devices activate nearby, including a large object crashing into the ground. The group realizes the entire place is filled with hidden traps. To protect his companion, Lutz raises a magical barrier and forms a windshield. Then he decides to trigger every trap in the area at once to clear the path safely. Lutz releases a powerful wind technique that sweeps across the area. The violent storm triggers every hidden trap at once. Hearing the chaos outside, the craftsman rushes out of the house in anger. The large man with an eye patch immediately shouts at the unexpected visitors. The moment he sees Lutz, recognition appears on the young mage's face. The man pauses briefly as the 2 groups stand across the trap-filled yard. Suddenly, the craftsman charges forward while throwing objects toward them. His aggressive reaction shows that he still believes the visitors are enemies. Garlic bulbs fly through the air as the man tries to drive away what he thinks are evil spirits. Lutz greets Kemp calmly and tells him that he is still alive. Kemp stares at him with disbelief, remembering the report that Lutz died after the Magic Bureau drained his power. Slowly, the truth sinks in. Kemp studies Lutz closely and begins to accept that the young mage truly survived. Annoyance quickly replaces the shock. Kemp scolds Lutz for disappearing without sending any message and demands an explanation. Inside the house, Lutz sits with the group and admits that many things happened after he left. He explains that the story is long and complicated. As the conversation continues, Kemp reveals that he once worked as a wand craftsman for the Magic Bureau. Kemp notices the condition of Lutz's staff and points out that it has become worn after long use. Curious about the staff, Kemp reaches out and carefully inspects the surface. His experienced hands examine every detail of the tool he once crafted. The condition of the weapon and the traces of use reveal that Lutz has built a strong reputation in the Empire. Nearby, Lutz's companions quietly observe the conversation. Kemp remarks that Lutz now travels with reliable comrades and seems to be doing well even in a foreign land. Living in such a remote place, he wonders what matter could have brought the young mage all the way to his countryside home. Inside the workshop, Lutz stands before Kemp and states the purpose of his visit. The young mage has come to find Dorothea. Without stopping his work, Kemp gives a short reply and drives his tool firmly into the wood. Lutz grows uneasy and asks for clarification. Kemp lowers his gaze while mentioning Dorothea's name, showing that something serious has happened. Kemp finally reveals the truth. Dorothea was taken away and is now being held in confinement behind prison bars. News about Dorothea's arrest reaches Kazuki and leaves him stunned. The accusation feels impossible to accept, and the sudden report creates deep confusion. Meanwhile, the Magic Bureau falls into disorder after Kazuki's departure. Workplace accidents increase, and the medical staff faces overwhelming pressure. Among the Bureau's members, Dorothea stands out as the only person who openly challenged the system. Hearing the accusation, Kemp firmly rejects the claim. In his view, Dorothea would never commit such an act without cause, while Kazuki quietly reflects on the troubling situation. Inside the building, Kemp leads Kazuki to Dorothea's prepared belongings, suggesting she had carefully arranged everything before the incident occurred. Kazuki urgently asks about Dorothea's location after hearing she has been detained. His sudden question surprises Kemp, who realizes Kazuki is already thinking about taking action. Concern quickly appears on Kemp's face as he understands Kazuki's intention. He warns that interfering could lead Kazuki into prison as well. The risk of bringing her back from such a place feels extremely dangerous, and he questions whether such a move is even possible. Nirbi, Fina, and the others consider the situation. Although breaking someone out of prison sounds illegal, Fina decides to support Kazuki's decision if he truly believes it is right. While discussing the plan, the group remembers their earlier actions before His Majesty. Kazuki declares his intention to meet Dorothea directly. Standing before the others, he asks if anyone knows where she is being held. Kemp watches him quietly and recognizes the familiar stubbornness in Kazuki's decision. After a moment of hesitation, Kemp finally agrees to reveal the location. Accepting Kazuki's resolve, he decides to provide the information needed to find Dorothea. The destination turns out to be Einsam Prison, a massive fortress isolated in the middle of the sea and known for holding dangerous prisoners. Soon after, Kazuki and the others approach the prison using a magic carpet, carefully preparing for the risky mission ahead. While approaching the prison, Fina reflects on Dorothea and realizes how much Kazuki trusts her. Kazuki quietly remembers his time working beside Dorothea. Although others described her as unusual, he always felt comfortable around her and believed she was a sincere person. As the group observes the fortress from outside, they realize sneaking in will be difficult. The group decides to move closer and approach the prison carefully. Their small craft advances toward the massive fortress surrounded by the dark sea. Inside the prison, someone notices movement outside the barred window, signaling that their risky infiltration has already begun. Suddenly, several prisoners reach through the bars with desperate hands, shouting and causing chaos as they try to grab attention. Nearby, Kazuki and his companions move carefully through the area while the noise continues behind them. Kazuki notices them in his hand and becomes confused, wondering how something like bread could drop from the ceiling. Looking up, Kazuki spots a small bird sitting on the window bars above the corridor. The strange discovery catches his attention. In another cell, Dorothea sits quietly with chains attached to her ankles, remaining calm despite her imprisonment. After searching through the prison corridors, Kazuki and his companions finally reach a cell that seems familiar. The prisoner slowly stands up as the group approaches the cell. Despite the chains around her ankles and wrists, Dorothea remains calm and observes her unexpected visitors. Relief spreads across his face as he confirms that the prisoner in front of him is truly Dorothea. The group gathers near the window and feels relieved after finally locating her. They quickly explain how they learned about her imprisonment and came to find her. Without wasting time, Kazuki urges Dorothea to leave the prison with them, determined to free her from the cell. She stands calmly while holding a small creature in her hands, showing little surprise at his sudden appearance. Dorothea then sits down again with the chains still attached to her ankles. Kazuki and the others watch silently from outside the bars as she remains strangely relaxed, despite the situation. Instead of showing fear, Dorothea speaks casually about her life inside the prison. Kazuki insists that she is the one trapped behind bars, but Dorothea responds calmly. In her view, people outside the prison are the ones still bound by society. Dorothea finally admits that living among humans has always been difficult for her, as she cannot accept the dishonesty that exists in their world. A prison guard suddenly approaches Dorothea's cell during the night, noticing movement nearby while she sits calmly inside the quiet prison. Inside a dim prison corridor, a warden walks with a lantern while checking the cells. In one cell, a young girl sits quietly with shackles around her wrists. Reports about voices coming from the cell draw his attention. The older guard explains the situation calmly. In his hand rests a small mouse, used as an example of how the girl often behaves. Steps echo along the corridor as the guard approaches the cell. The girl sits quietly while the officer reveals her crime and the large amount of money she once possessed. Bruised and exhausted, she remembers how the money was spent to treat wounded people when official help could not save them. The guard suddenly strikes the girl inside the cell. Her body falls to the floor as the chains on her wrists rattle loudly. Grabbing her by the hair, the guard forces her head up. His face moves close as he accuses her of committing a serious crime. A memory from the past returns to the girl. Inside a crowded clinic, doctors struggle to treat many injured patients. Soon afterward, the situation grows worse. More patients collapse while treatment runs out completely. Faced with desperation, the girl quietly decides to take money from the Magic Bureau's safe to buy the medicine needed to save the wounded. Dorothea walks through the hallway of the medical bureau with determination. Officials warn her that taking money from the safe without permission would bring serious consequences. Frustration rises as Dorothea faces the officials. Many injured patients wait for treatment while their condition worsens. Several co-workers step forward and express their support. They decide to stand with her, willing to cooperate to help the wounded people. Later, an investigation begins. Reports accuse Dorothea of stealing the money while the others claim they only focused on treatment. After hearing everything, Dorothea quietly accepts the outcome and acknowledges the situation without resistance. The prison corridor grows quiet after the guard leaves. Dorothea remains seated inside the cell while a small mouse moves near her feet. Despite the accusations against her, he remembers how she always cared deeply for the patients more than anyone else. For a moment, Dorothea recalls the past when Lutz once came to her asking for help with something important. At that time, Lutz believed she was the right person who could help him achieve his dream. However, Dorothea refused and told him to leave before trouble reached him as well. The tall iron bars surround her while silence fills the narrow space. She remains still, accepting the situation without resistance. Outside the prison building, Lutz meets two companions on a floating platform. Determined to save Dorothea, he asks for their help to get her out of the prison. Lutz first considers breaking the wall using magic, but the others quickly point out that such a loud action would immediately alert the guards. One of the companions remembers a special magic that creates bright fireworks in the sky. They agree to use the fireworks magic to draw the guards away, while Lutz secretly breaks through the wall to rescue Dorothea. Lutz gathers his companions and begins explaining the rescue plan. Night will be the moment to act, and everyone listens carefully while he prepares the next steps. Before starting, Lutz assigns an important task to one of his teammates. The mission is to sneak into the guard's room and search for Dorothea's pendant, which was likely confiscated when she was imprisoned. However, Lutz explains that stealth magic makes this person the only one capable of completing the mission. Encouraged by Lutz's trust, the companion quickly accepts the role and rushes off toward the prison. Meanwhile, inside the prison building, several guards relax while playing a board game, unaware that someone is secretly approaching their room. Two guards stand on the prison balcony during the night watch. A strange sound reaches them from somewhere nearby, causing one guard to pause and look around. Behind them, a hidden figure moves silently through the hallway. Using stealth, the intruder slips past the guards without being noticed and continues deeper into the prison. Outside the building, the infiltrator approaches the prison, preparing to complete the mission and return to Lutz. Night covers a distant castle standing alone beside the sea. Waves move quietly around the island while the tall fortress rises above the dark water. On the rooftop, Lutz sits beside a young girl while holding his staff. A strange feeling fills the quiet air as both of them observe the surroundings carefully. Hours pass without interruption. Guards continue their routine far below, showing no sign of noticing the two figures above. Concern grows in the girl's mind as she thinks about the condition of the kingdom. Memories of the past return as he reflects on how little he once knew about the kingdom and the people connected to his life. Straight suddenly calls out to Lutz while standing on the castle wall. The shout breaks the quiet moment between them. Excitement quickly replaces that hesitation. Straight proudly shows a small pendant while jumping with joy. Lutz carefully holds the pendant and examines it closely. Relief appears as he confirms the item is safe. Inside a nearby tavern, several men continue drinking without noticing anything unusual. The calm atmosphere remains unchanged for a moment. Suddenly, a loud impact breaks through the building. Debris crashes inside as the peaceful night is violently interrupted. Bright fireworks suddenly light up the night sky above the island castle. Colorful bursts spread across the darkness while people inside nearby buildings react with confusion inside the castle. Dorothea activates a magic circle while holding her staff. The glowing pattern spreads across the floor as she focuses on the spell. Lutz moves closer while the magic circle continues to shine. The situation grows more serious. As the spell begins to affect the surrounding structure, a powerful burst suddenly erupts from the wall. Stones and debris scatter across the room as the structure breaks apart under the force of the magic. After the explosion settles, Lutz reaches toward the fading magic circle. Dorothea speaks with quiet frustration as painful memories surface in her mind. Her expression shows how deeply past betrayal has affected her trust in others. Lutz calmly reflects on the meaning of trust, believing that even difficult choices between comrades can still hold sincerity. For a moment, Dorothea simply stands still. The words linger in her thoughts while the quiet room surrounds her. Outside, fireworks continue lighting the sky behind Lutz. He calmly observes Dorothea, realizing her view of trust comes from painful experience. With the ruined wall open behind them, Lutz reassures her that one day she will be able to trust someone again. Lutz reaches out and firmly takes Dorothea's hand. Standing on the glowing magic circle, he pulls her toward the opening created in the broken wall. Elsewhere in the castle, guards inside a tavern complain loudly about the strange noise echoing through the building. One guard angrily demands tighter security while shouting toward the warden. Nearby, a damaged wall reveals the prison area behind iron bars. Far away from the chaos, three figures travel together through the night sky on a flying carpet, leaving the castle behind. During the quiet journey, the recovered pendant is finally returned to Dorothea, bringing the mission to a calm conclusion. In the city, a strange smell spreads through the air while smoke rises in the distance. A man suddenly shouts Dorothea's name in surprise. Inside a medical room, Dorothea calmly explains the relationship between poison and medicine while holding several bottles. Outside the medical area, injured soldiers begin arriving from the battlefield. Dorothea sits quietly at a table while people move around the busy area. The medical station grows crowded as more soldiers and workers pass by. Nearby, Lutz sits alone on a small stool with his staff resting beside him. The lingering smell reminds him that the earlier events are not yet completely over. Dorothea notices Lutz approaching with visible injuries. Dirt and small wounds cover his face as he admits he was hurt during the mission. After checking him, Dorothea realizes the damage is more serious than expected. His leg is injured, yet he still managed to walk all the way back without using healing magic. While she treats the injury, Lutz calmly explains that healing magic is not his specialty. The treatment finishes smoothly, and Dorothea smiles with relief. She reminds him not to push himself too hard despite his determination. Later, Lutz prepares to leave again for another mission, asking Dorothea for one last check before departing. Lutz stands in front of Dorothea again, covered in new injuries from another mission. Arrows and bandages mark the rough battle he endured. While examining his arm, Dorothea becomes frustrated by how recklessly Lutz keeps pushing himself. During the quiet moment, Lutz reflects on his past. He remembers losing his mother to illness when he was still very young, a memory that continues to shape his thoughts. Because of that loss, he believes that no doctor can cure everything. Even powerful magic cannot solve every problem in the world. Hearing his words, Dorothea softly smiles, beginning to understand the meaning behind his determination. Dorothea quietly reflects on her dream while holding the small pendant. Inside the locket rests a picture that reminds her of the past and the promise she once made. Watching Lutz travel with their companions across the wide landscape, Dorothea notices how different he seems compared to the person he once was in the kingdom. The group continues their journey while standing on the flying carpet above the mountains. She calmly acknowledges their efforts and begins seeing their journey from a new perspective. As the sun slowly rises over the distant valley, the flying carpet carries them forward, leaving the past behind, while new possibilities wait ahead. A quiet riverside home suddenly turns tense when an old man with an eye patch notices a familiar girl. Without slowing down, Dorothea rushes into the yard. The old man reacts with shock as she passes him quickly, her urgency revealing that trouble has followed her back. Moments later, others arrive and urge everyone to leave at once. Movement spreads through the area as the group prepares to escape. Inside the house, Dorothea explains their situation. They are already fugitives, and remaining there will only bring danger upon them. Determination fills her expression as she carries her bag and decides their next destination. The empire becomes their only hope for a new future. Inside the palace, a young ruler sits on the throne while guards and officials stand nearby. The young ruler listens quietly as the messenger finishes the report. Surprise crosses his face while he reflects on the strange incident that has just been described. Instead of reacting with anger, laughter suddenly erupts from the throne. The ruler finds the situation unbelievable and oddly amusing. Amusement continues, as he explains that the story sounds too absurd to imagine. The event feels more like an unbelievable tale than a real report. Suspicion rises as someone wonders if this man might be the poison expert connected to the incident. Inside the imperial hall, Kemp kneels. Before the young emperor, confusion spreads as Kemp speaks boldly, without realizing he is addressing the ruler himself. The emperor finds the situation amusing rather than offensive, while the others present quickly explain that the man is the poison expert brought from the kingdom. Attention then turns to the girl who arrived with them. Dorothea kneels politely and introduces herself before the throne. From a distance, the emperor notices her small appearance and wonders if she is still a child. Dorothea reacts with visible annoyance, insisting she is already an adult despite her youthful look. Inside the palace, the emperor calmly reflects on the events that brought the group there. With the help of Straight's ability, the group repeatedly crossed between the kingdom and the empire while avoiding pursuit. As the story is told, memories of the journey return. At first, uncertainty surrounded their plan, yet the experience gradually turned into something meaningful. One companion smiles warmly while recalling the trip. Traveling together created a bond that made the difficult journey enjoyable, despite the risks. Back in the present, the emperor gives Dorothea a task. He entrusts her with revealing the truth behind the poisoned swamp and restoring the lake to its former beauty. In the city, the emperor explains the reason for the mission. Dorothea listens carefully as he speaks about the poisoned swamp. Despite the warnings, the emperor decides to personally observe the situation while an escort is prepared for the journey. Soon after, a large escort group departs from the capital. Carriages and guards travel through the open countryside toward the distant mountains. During the journey, concern spreads when Straight appears weak. He insists he is fine after receiving help from Finsan's magic. However, a strange hostile sensation suddenly spreads through the area, causing unease among the travelers. As the group travels, a sudden voice mentions Finay's name. A tall woman named Lena appears among the escort, calmly observing the group. Nearby, Dorothea quietly walks through the grass while Lena watches her. Lena notices that the girl from the kingdom has joined the expedition and begins wondering about her role. Surprise spreads among the travelers when she suddenly appears in front of them, revealing that she is part of the escort. Beyond the trees lies the poisoned swamp, the dangerous place they came to investigate. Before moving forward, the emperor gives clear instructions. Lutz and Dorothea are ordered to investigate carefully and immediately report any discoveries. Lutz and Dorothea step forward after receiving their orders. The area ahead is suspected to contain dangerous toxins. To protect everyone, a magic shield is created around the group. The barrier surrounds them as they slowly advance deeper into the hazardous area. Dark water spreads across the land while strange creatures crawl within it, revealing how severely the place has been corrupted. Dorothea kneels near the edge of the water and begins examining the swamp carefully while Lutz watches over the surroundings, taking out a special tool. Dorothea uses a magic mirror that reveals the true nature of anything it reflects, allowing her to investigate the poison closely. The device begins revealing what cannot normally be seen, allowing her to examine the true condition of the polluted land. Holding the mirror carefully, she studies the swamp's hidden nature. Her expression turns serious as the tool exposes details invisible to ordinary sight. The reflection reveals that the swamp's corruption is not caused by simple poison. Lutz and the others watch as Dorothea realizes a deeper and more dangerous cause. Dorothea concludes that a monster living within the swamp has spread these demonic organisms throughout the water. Near a poisoned swamp, 3 investigators observe a strange dome-like surface rising from the water. Careful observation reveals the creatures are black bats. These tiny monsters carry toxic properties and have long been recorded in the kingdom. Meanwhile, Lutz considers how they appeared in the empire. Growing trade between the two countries may have allowed the creatures to hide among imported goods. A clear realization forms in Lutz's mind. Lack of knowledge in the empire prevented anyone from understanding how to deal with these creatures properly. Understanding the threat is not enough to stop it. Acting quickly, Lutz releases a powerful ice spell that freezes the swamp's surface, trapping the swarm and preventing further spread. The water instantly turns solid, sealing the surface and trapping the swarm of tiny creatures beneath the ice. Dorothea watches the frozen lake in surprise, while Lutz calmly checks the result of his magic. Suddenly, the frozen surface shatters. A violent force erupts from below, breaking the ice and sending fragments flying from the dark water. A gigantic shadowy creature rises. Countless tiny monsters combine into one enormous form, towering above the swamp and spreading across the surface. What was believed to be a swarm of small creatures has gathered into a single massive monster, far larger and more dangerous than they anticipated. The massive creature rises higher above the swamp, its body formed from countless tiny monsters moving together as one. Group quickly realizes that if the monster continues spreading, the entire surrounding area could become poisoned. The situation turns urgent. A magic circle appears before him as he casts a powerful spell, releasing multiple blazing meteors toward the giant creature. The fiery meteors strike the massive body from several directions. Explosions surround the creature as the attack rains down across its dark surface. Meteors pass through parts of the creature's shifting body, revealing that the monster's unusual structure prevents the spell from landing properly. After surviving the attack, the massive creature suddenly shifts its form and begins sliding away from the frozen swamp. The group quickly notices the monster's direction. Panic spreads as they realize the creature is moving straight toward the forest where the king and others are located. Using a powerful movement technique, he dashes across the ground to intercept the escaping monster. The warrior closes the distance and launches a swift strike toward the creature's body, while Lutz supports the attack from behind with magic. Dark tendrils suddenly burst outward from the monster's body. The attacker becomes trapped mid-assault as the creature's shapeless mass surrounds him. Attack fails, and the dark creature retaliates. One of the investigators collapses after being poisoned by the monster's toxic body. His strength fades as the poison worsens, leaving Lutz to support him while the others watch with concern. Despite his condition, the injured fighter encourages Lutz to keep going. Determination remains in his expression even as he loses the strength to stand. Dorothea searches through her notes, while Lutz carries the wounded man towards safety. Information about the monster's poison becomes crucial for finding a way to defeat it. Suddenly, Dorothea discovers the key weakness. The black bats that form the creature become weaker when exposed to light. Thick algae and surrounding trees had blocked sunlight from reaching the lake, allowing the black bats to multiply without natural enemies controlling their numbers. Searching his memory, Lutz remembers a spell recorded in a magic book carrying the poisoned warrior. Lutz decides to risk everything on the idea. Using light magic might slow the poison spreading through the man's body, while also weakening the monster. The group quickly moves through the forest, rushing toward the others while time continues to run out for their injured companion. Meanwhile, the Emperor's carriage prepares to depart, leaving the battle in the investigators' hands as the danger in the forest continues to grow. Soldiers escort the Emperor's carriage through the forest when a strange noise echoes from the distance. Enormous creature formed from countless black bats appears in the sky, towering over the forest and alarming everyone below. The soldiers quickly realize the truth and identify the approaching figure as a monster. Fear spreads among the guards as they prepare to face the unexpected threat. Royal mages step forward and immediately begin casting defensive magic. Their priority becomes protecting the Emperor as the giant creature descends closer to the forest path. One of the Imperial mages launches a powerful spell toward the monster's body. Arriving near the battlefield, Lutz and his companions notice the Imperial mages already fighting the giant swarm monster threatening the Emperor. A gigantic creature emerges from the forest near the Emperor's traveling route. Its enormous body rises above the trees, casting a heavy shadow across the road. Nearby ground begins to tremble as the creature moves through the swamp. Mud and shallow water shift while the surrounding land reacts to the creature's immense weight. Soldiers in attendance stop and stare toward the towering figure. Confusion spreads among the group, while they struggle to understand the sudden threat appearing before them. Careful attention leads him to suspect the poisonous swamp is connected to the monster's growth. Through close observation, the mage realizes the creature became powerful because the swamp lacked natural predators, allowing it to grow unchecked. A young girl stands in front of the Imperial group with intense determination. Urgency spreads through the group as the girl calls for the monster's immediate destruction. Nearby, a young mage named Oscar appears and calmly rejects the plan. Without hesitation, Oscar steps forward and activates his magic. Streams of power spread outward as he begins restraining the monster instead of attacking it directly. Leaping into the air, Oscar approaches the towering creature with precise movement. A powerful magical strike lands against the monster's head. Bright magic circles appear above the creature as Oscar unleashes a technique known as the Holy Lance of Purification, sending a concentrated force of sacred energy downward. Brilliant streams of sacred light descend from the sky as Oscar's purification spell activates. The powerful beams strike the creature directly, while soldiers nearby watch from a distance. Under the force of the purification, the massive monster begins to lose its form. Its enormous body breaks apart and slowly dissolves into scattered particles. The soldiers and attendants witness the creature shrinking with visible surprise. After releasing the spell, Oscar lowers himself to the ground and rests against a nearby tree. Exhaustion appears on his face while the battlefield grows silent. Group gathers around the spot and realizes the once enormous creature has been reduced to a tiny form, its threat completely ended. A young mage steps forward and spreads his arms, positioning himself between the group and the weakened creature. Strong emotions fill the scene as the girl argues that the creature could still live peacefully despite its weakened state. Oscar reacts sharply to her words, showing clear anger. The tension between them grows as he questions her reasoning and challenges the sudden defense of the creature. Nearby, the small creature slowly moves across the ground. Its reduced form shows how harmless it has become after the purification spell. The girl continues her argument, questioning whether destroying the creature would truly honor the wishes of those who were lost. Situation settles after the battle. Oscar advises the injured soldiers to return first, while the rest prepare to leave the area. The place where the poisonous swamp once spread now looks calmer, with the surroundings slowly recovering. Upon arrival, the girl notices something unusual. The swamp that once filled the area has completely disappeared, leaving the ground frozen and solid enough to cross. Standing before the grave, she recalls how the place once held beautiful water lilies that her parents loved. Looking around carefully, she realizes the swamp's thick growth had blocked the sunlight before. Now that it is gone, the land finally allows light to pass through again. The group gathers quietly before a stone monument where the girl's parents are buried. Oscar watches the moment in silence. A faint, gentle expression appears on his face as he observes the girl finally reaching the place she had been longing to visit. Long journey and the hardships she faced finally lead her to this quiet reunion with the memory of her parents. She places an offering before the grave and remains there for a moment, expressing the feelings she had carried for so long. Afterward, the girl turns toward Oscar and the others. Gratitude fills the moment as she acknowledges the people who helped her reach this place. Surprised by the gratitude directed toward her, she believes she did nothing special and feels unsure about receiving praise after everything that happened. Experience leaves him thinking about how much there is still to understand about the kingdom and the people within it. The group begins preparing to leave the area. The girl decides that Oscar deserves recognition for resolving the crisis and plans to arrange a proper reward for his actions. Sunlight finally reaches the restored land where the swamp once existed. The quiet monument stands under the open sky, marking the end of the incident. Oscar Lutz stands before the grave of his parents, remembering the difficult path that shaped his life. Once labeled useless, he endured constant doubt from others. Nobles, soldiers, and officials observe the ceremony, while the emperor prepares a reward for Lutz's service and loyalty to the empire. Soon after, a great announcement is made. Authority over one of the empire's domains is granted to Lutz. The territory named Altheim becomes his responsibility to guard and govern. Faced with this unexpected honor, Lutz kneels respectfully and accepts the heavy duty. Discussion continues about the territory of Altheim. The land includes a small village that was once attacked by bandits, leaving many buildings in ruins. After the explanation, the emperor allows Lutz to bring companions to assist him in governing the territory. Duty to protect the emperor weighs heavily on her mind, yet the new mission also draws her attention. Noticing her reaction, Lutz casually suggests that she could come with him if she wishes. The unexpected remark leaves her visibly startled. Confusion spreads across the hall as others observe the moment. Lutz quickly clarifies his words while the situation becomes awkward. Inside the grand hall, Lutz kneels before the emperor, while another question arises regarding his personal life within the empire. However, nobles who receive territory are usually expected to maintain a proper household. Such status normally includes a companion who can support the position. Lutz is given 1 year to properly establish himself as a lord, including fulfilling the expectations placed upon someone who governs land. Later, the Imperial Guard walks through the corridor while reflecting that something about the situation feels unusual. Meanwhile, Lutz processes the news, realizing that what he thought was a simple reward has turned into major responsibilities. Admiration for Lutz's achievements inspires deep respect, and the follower expresses determination to support him no matter the challenges ahead. Hearing this dedication reminds Lutz that he must gather capable people before leaving for his territory. Soon after, another eager supporter requests permission to accompany Lutz. Excitement spreads as individuals step forward, hoping to join his mission and serve under his leadership. Praise continues as more people acknowledge Lutz's accomplishments and loyalty to the Empire, even though he was originally born in the kingdom. Meanwhile, rumors quietly spread among others in the palace about who might become closely connected to Lutz. A soldier reports plans to deploy the Dahlia Corps to Alfheim. The decision reflects the growing importance of the territory under Lutz's authority. The news surprises him, and appreciation appears as he realizes that trusted allies are ready to support the upcoming mission. During their meeting, Lambert reminds Lutz to be mindful of his position and the responsibility attached to his new title. Nearby, another companion notices the discussion and reacts with casual familiarity toward Lutz. As preparations continue, talk shifts to Alfheim, a place some of them have never visited before. While walking through the palace, Lutz finally encounters Fina, whom he had been searching for. She appears surprised by the sudden meeting and hesitates, unsure why he approached her so directly. His request is straightforward, showing that he already trusts her abilities and wants her beside him for the mission. Fina becomes flustered by the unexpected invitation. Her reaction shows both surprise and uncertainty as she tries to understand the meaning behind his request. Afterward, Lutz continues walking through the corridor, explaining that he still has several people to meet before finalizing his preparations. Elsewhere, another officer hears about the situation and immediately rejects the idea with a firm response. Lutz visits another officer while continuing to gather people for his journey. The man questions why he should follow him and treats the proposal casually. After hearing about the assignment to govern Alfheim, the officer immediately refuses to participate. He notices a slight reaction when the name Alfheim is mentioned. The officer briefly changes expression but quickly hides it and dismisses the concern. Later, Lutz meets several other individuals who agree to support him. Slowly, a small group begins to form around his mission. On the day of departure, Lutz studies a map and plans to visit a nearby village first. The journey to Alfheim finally begins. Preparations continue as members of the group gather near the carriage. Rena reports that the luggage has been checked and everything is ready for the journey. One of the Imperial Guards expresses gratitude for being included in the mission. She explains that the Emperor's generous words influenced her decision to participate. Nearby, confusion briefly breaks out when a horse suddenly runs off with a carriage, causing alarm among those watching the scene. Despite the chaos, the group begins organizing their roles. Each member prepares to assist Lutz in managing the heavy work awaiting them in Alfheim. As everyone gathers together, it becomes clear that the team formed around Lutz is ready to support his mission. Lutz looks at the companions who chose to stand beside him. Their presence shows the trust he has gained through his actions. Soon after, the group departs from the city gates. Horses pull the carriage forward while Lutz and his allies begin their journey. A large stone gate marked the entrance to the Alfheim territory. Wagons rolled across the open plain as several travelers approached the border. Inside one wagon, the travelers looked at the surrounding landscape filled with rivers and greenery. Food was shared among the passengers after many days of limited rations. The meal helped restore their strength during the long trip. Soon the scenery shifted into farmland. Vast wheat fields covered the land, and tall windmills turned slowly in the distance. Signs of farming activity appeared across the countryside. Wagons continued moving toward the settlement, while the travelers observed the rural surroundings during their approach. The wagons finally stopped at the edge of the village. Horses slowed as the travelers prepared to get down. A sudden feeling made Lutz pause. Something about the situation seemed unusual. Oscar noticed the hesitation and quickly decided to follow him. Houses stood quietly on both sides, and no villagers appeared outside. Even in the middle of the day, the place felt strangely silent. One of the doors finally opened. An elderly man appeared and looked toward the visitors. Before anything else could be explained, a loud impact struck nearby. The sudden noise echoed through the area. After the sudden disturbance, the group tried to continue checking the village. One companion suggested moving to another house to learn more. The old man stepped outside and looked at the visitors with suspicion. He questioned their arrival and doubted their intentions. Oscar attempted to explain their purpose. He tried to assure the villager that he had no intention of taking control of the land. The explanation failed to calm the old man. Anger filled his voice as he rejected the idea completely. As the door slammed shut, a name echoed in Oscar's mind. The villager had mentioned Clay Sama, leaving Oscar wondering who this person was. Group continued walking through the quiet village streets. Several houses had their doors closed, and villagers avoided meeting them. Concern appeared on Oscar's face while the group discussed their next step. One companion suggested leaving and returning another day. Suddenly, a sharp sound cut through the air. An arrow flew from the trees above and aimed directly toward them. Oscar quickly reacted and blocked the attack with his weapon. The arrow was deflected before it could reach the group. A masked archer revealed himself from the trees. He demanded to know why strangers had come to the village. Suspicion filled his gaze as he questioned their purpose. He stepped forward and revealed his identity to the masked archer. He explained that he had been entrusted with the governance of Alfheim by the Emperor. Lambert calmly continued the explanation, and apologized for arriving with several companions. The archer listened carefully while considering their words. Hearing respect shown toward Clay changed his attitude slightly. After a moment of thought, the archer finally agreed to guide them. Although he could not promise a meeting, he was willing to show them the way to Clay. As they followed the guide, Oscar reflected on the unusual village. It became clear that the villagers placed great trust in Clay. The building was far larger than the surrounding houses, with tall walls and a wide staircase leading to the entrance. Several villagers approached the mansion carrying bags and supplies. These items were gathered as offerings from the entire village for Clay. Oscar and his companions entered the mansion. Inside, the rooms were filled with shelves, books, and carefully arranged items. Oscar carefully examined the interior. Numerous magic items and spellbooks lined the shelves, confirming what he had suspected about the place. A strong magical barrier surrounded the building. Oscar had sensed its presence earlier when they first entered the village. Their guide announced their arrival and called for Clay. Everyone waited quietly, standing before the closed entrance. The door slowly opened from inside. A voice from within acknowledged their presence, and recognized that someone claiming to be the new lord had come to visit. Instead of welcoming them, the voice ordered the guard named Zeman to send the visitors away. Zeman reacted with suspicion and raised his weapon. He warned that strangers pretending to be nobles could simply be bandits trying to deceive them. One companion stepped forward and mentioned that they carried an official document from the Emperor. However, the guard dismissed the claim and refused to listen further. From behind the door, the person inside continued refusing their request. Even the mention of official authority did not change the decision. Zeman raised his bow and aimed directly at the group. The hallway became tense as the visitors stood facing the armed guard. Oscar lifted his hand calmly, unsure how to respond without making things worse. He tried to think of a way to resolve the situation peacefully, while the guard remained ready to attack. Suddenly, a loud shout came from outside. A warning spread through the area that a monster had appeared nearby. The guard and others moved as well, shifting their focus from the confrontation to the new threat approaching the village. As everyone rushed outside the mansion, a voice suddenly called out from above. Someone stood on the balcony and stopped the group. Without hesitation, a young witch leaped forward with determination. She declared that the monster belonged to her target. At the edge of the village, a man struggled while a monster attacked him. Panic spread as the creature moved violently. Witch descended quickly and struck the monster with powerful force. The impact slammed the creature to the ground and stopped its attack. A violent force slams into the ground, forming a large crater in the field, at the center of the impact. Pain spreads through Lutz as he struggles to move after the fall. Nearby companions stare in shock, realizing how serious the impact was. Beside him, a witch sits down while holding her head in frustration. Regret grows as she thinks about the mistake that led to this accident. From a distance, another companion rushes toward them and kneels beside Lutz. Worry fills her face as she checks his unmoving body. Without warning, Lutz suddenly moves and pushes someone aside while rising to his feet, proving he survived the crash. Lutz slowly sits up after the crash while his companions watch with worry. The witch nearby studies him carefully, realizing that he survived the heavy impact. After witnessing his strength during the battle, she finally acknowledges that he truly possesses the abilities of a real mage. A serious expression forms on her face as she studies him closely. Lutz senses the change in her attitude and waits for her next action. Without hesitation, the witch suddenly turns and begins walking away from the group. Lutz calls out and offers help against the monster threatening the area. Continuing forward, the witch refuses their support. She explains that she has been protecting the village alone. The witch walks ahead while Lutz and his companions follow behind her through the forest. As they approach the village, Lutz explains that a monster suddenly appeared nearby. The group came to investigate the situation and check whether the villagers were safe. After observing the quiet settlement, Lutz notices something unusual. The houses are sealed and the villagers have already hidden themselves inside. Outside the village, the witch stands alone while several large monsters surround her from different directions. She prepares to face them without hesitation. A magical barrier forms in front of her staff. As one monster rushes forward, the creature crashes against the spell with force, showing the intensity of the battle. From the ground, a massive stone creature emerges and charges toward the attacking monsters. Lutz and the soldiers arrive at the battlefield, and offer their help to defend the village. The witch notices them but declares that the fight is her responsibility. One of the soldiers launches a powerful attack that slices through a monster with great force. The sudden strike changes the flow of the battle. Surprise appears on the witch's face as she witnesses the unexpected strength of the soldiers. Lutz prepares another spell while observing the battlefield carefully. A large magical formation appears around a massive tree as Lutz activates his magic. Energy surges through the ground, striking the monster's body with powerful force and stopping its movement. At the same time, a female soldier leaps high into the air. She moves swiftly toward another monster, preparing to attack from above. Her blade cuts across the creature with a precise strike. The monster's large body crashes down as the attack lands successfully. Watching the scene, the young witch shows excitement and admiration toward the soldier's strength. Another soldier steps forward and launches a wide attack toward the remaining monsters, continuing the fight to protect the village. After the battle, the defeated monster is prepared as food. A large dish is placed on the table, and one of the soldiers begins eating confidently as if it were a normal meal. Around the village square, the group gathers while the soldiers quickly cook the monster meat. While eating calmly, Lutz listens to the villagers and learns more about the situation in the village. Nearby, more villagers gather around the table where the food is served. Curiosity spreads as they see the unusual meal being shared openly. Standing beside the table, Lutz observes the scene quietly while the others continue eating and talking in the village square. The young witch stands quietly in the village square after everything settles. Her expression shows uncertainty as she looks around the place she has been protecting alone. Moments later, she lowers the brim of her hat and suddenly runs away from the group. The group stops and considers her behavior from a distance. Some believe she simply wants to be left alone after everything that happened. However, Lutz calmly refuses to ignore her situation. In his view, the witch is also one of the people who live in this village. Far ahead on the empty street, the witch continues walking through the quiet town, unaware that Lutz has already accepted her place among the villagers. Inside a formal hall, several officials bow their heads before a young mage. Their posture shows deep regret as they admit their earlier judgment was unfair. Outside in the village, the chief meets the mage and accompanying knights. Gratitude is expressed for protecting the settlement from danger. Suddenly, a man rushes forward in distress. Guards quickly seize him before he can approach further. Along the village path, the discussion continues among the group. Uneasy villagers watch from a distance while the knights ask about local threats. Chaos breaks out as a monster emerges nearby, and frightened villagers scatter. Panic spreads across the area while people try to escape. According to them, these attacks happen often. A young witch named Clay stands confidently with her broom, her cloak and hair moving with the wind. Hearing this praise, the young mage reacts with surprise. The claim that Clay is considered a savior clearly catches him off guard. The villagers explain their past struggles. Every day used to be filled with fear, as monsters frequently attacked the area. Using powerful magic, Clay fought the monsters and protected the people. Since that time, the village has managed to survive thanks to her constant help and bravery. While the story is shared, the village chief looks toward the visiting group with a calm expression. The village chief politely invites the visiting group to stay for the night. Although the inn is small, he assures them that space is available. Night soon falls over the quiet village. Stars fill the sky as the lights inside the buildings glow softly. Standing alone on a balcony, the young mage looks out into the dark forest surrounding the village. Later, a woman approaches the room with a serious expression. Her posture suggests hesitation, as if she has come with something important to say. Attention soon turns to Clay again, and the young mage considers speaking with her once more to better understand the situation. A message is successfully delivered inside the inn. The messenger reports that Lambert is currently surrounded by admirers and cannot move freely. Rena listens quietly as the young mage thanks her for handling the message. He praises her reliability and expresses relief that she was present to help. As the conversation continues, the young mage realizes that Rena immediately sensed there was another mage in the village. After saying goodnight, Rena pauses briefly outside the room. Her expression becomes thoughtful as she reflects on the earlier conversation. Later, inside the guest room, another girl has already prepared the bed and happily welcomes Rena. Night settles over the quiet village as the lights of the inn glow softly under the starry sky. Inside, the guests prepare to rest after a long day. Elsewhere in the village, Clay sits alone on a small bridge over the river. He watches her fishing for a moment before speaking. Clay notices his presence but remains calm, continuing her quiet activity. The unexpected meeting quickly turns tense. Clay reacts sharply and pushes him away from the bridge, making it clear she does not wish to speak with him. After the brief conflict, the two sit near the water and talk more calmly. Sitting beside the quiet river, the young mage explains that he wants to understand Clay better because she also lives in the village. She pulls it up with quick excitement, but the moment passes just as quickly when the fish slips away again. Clay calmly explains that the fish often approach the bait, but rarely bite. Many times they come close, yet they escape at the last moment. After a short silence, Clay turns toward him with a serious expression. She begins to suspect that he might be judging her abilities like others have done before, because she can easily defeat monsters. She believes people assume she is weak in other ways. On the quiet bridge, Clay announces that she plans to leave the village soon. She believes the village no longer needs her protection now that stronger people have arrived. He insists that he should not worry about her situation, convinced that she could never defeat someone with his level of power. According to them, Clay has been the one protecting the village this entire time, and they see her as their savior. He continues explaining that everyone respects her efforts. Even Zaimon admires her greatly and wishes to learn from her. Instead, he came because the village truly needs her, and her presence still matters more than she believes. Standing on the bridge at night, Clay begins to feel conflicted. Doubt grows inside her as she questions her place in the village. The uneasy voice continues to influence her thoughts. It claims that the place she once protected was never truly meant for her. As Clay struggles internally, the voice insists that it understands her deepest desire. The whisper promises something different. Instead of being the Clay that no one needs, it offers the chance to become someone truly valued and necessary. Seeing Clay suddenly lose balance, the young mage quickly catches her before she falls. On the bridge, Clay stands still as the dark voice continues to influence her mind. It convinces her that her current self is not enough, and that she must change into someone more valuable to the world. As the influence intensifies, Clay suddenly moves forward recklessly. The young mage reacts immediately and rushes toward her to stop the dangerous moment. Both fall hard onto the ground during the struggle. The young mage holds Clay tightly to prevent her from hurting herself while calling out to her in alarm. Inside a quiet mansion room, a young girl lies still on a large bed. Thick blankets cover her body while two attendants stand nearby, observing her condition with worry. Soon, several people gather around the bed as tension spreads through the room. A strange moment occurs when something invisible appears to leave the girl's body. Their explanation suggests that something unnatural had been connected to the girl moments earlier. The attendants examine her condition again. Life still remains in her body, yet she stays unconscious. Meanwhile, the doctor explains that no known illness can cause such a condition, leaving the mystery unresolved. Clay reflects on the strange event surrounding the unconscious girl. The possibility of magic crosses his mind, yet the situation still feels impossible. Others in the room consider the idea carefully. Even the royal court has no mage capable of casting such a powerful spell. The elderly doctor eventually forms a troubling conclusion. Such an unnatural event could only be caused by a witch, someone rumored to possess dangerous and mysterious abilities. Panic would only spread fear among the villagers, so the group decides to keep the incident secret while searching for a solution. Hearing the girl's faint voice, he grows tense, sensing that something far more mysterious has begun to unfold. Outside the mansion, several villagers gather while guards stand nearby. Trouble seems to follow the place again, and concern spreads among those present. Clay quickly approaches a villager who appears to know something. Before he can leave, the man stops him. Although uncertain, the villager hesitates to speak. Clay insists that any clue could help them understand the mystery surrounding the girl's condition. The man finally recalls an old legend about the land. Long ago, it was believed to be a place where witches once lived. However, fear and suspicion eventually turned the villagers against them, leading to a tragic hunt that ended their lives. The old legend continues with a dark moment from the past. Villagers capture the final witch and burn her alive. While the flames consume her body, the witch declares that after 100 years she will rise again in the same land. After telling the story, the old man admits that most villagers no longer believe the legend. However, something strange once happened before. When the former lord disappeared, his body was later found in a similar condition. Clay listens carefully and begins to realize the disturbing coincidence. The current event has occurred exactly 100 years after the witch's final curse. The idea sounds unbelievable to some of them, yet the recent events inside the mansion make the story difficult to ignore. Having overheard the discussion, he pleads for a chance to help save Clay and uncover the truth behind the mysterious incident. Clay remains calm and focuses on gathering more information. He asks whether the former lord experienced the same strange fate, hoping the past may reveal something important. Zaimon then remembers a possible clue. The mansion where the former lord once lived has remained untouched for many years. The suggestion catches everyone's attention, yet hesitation appears among them. An old rumor surrounds a large abandoned mansion. Villagers believe strange figures sometimes appear near its windows at night. Rain falls heavily as a small group approaches the mansion to investigate. Uneasiness spreads while the group walks closer. Memories of past dangers return to one member, while others mention rumors that ghosts wander around the area. Large doors slowly come into view as they reach the entrance. Some whisper that the spirit of the former lord might still remain inside the mansion. Dim halls and silent rooms create an unsettling atmosphere, making everyone realize the investigation will not be easy. Heavy doors suddenly swing shut behind the group. Surprise spreads through the hallway as the sound echoes across the empty mansion. Confusion grows when no one admits to touching the door. Questions begin to spread through the group, while tension quietly rises inside the dark corridor. Strange details around the room begin to draw attention. A mounted animal head drips with dark liquid. Shock spreads instantly as the unexpected event startles everyone. Bodies bump into each other while they react to the sudden movement and strange atmosphere. In the chaos, two members cling tightly together while stumbling forward. Embarrassment and panic mix together as they struggle to regain balance inside the eerie mansion. Sudden movement startles the group while they stand inside the dark corridor. One member quickly signals for silence, sensing something unusual nearby. Careful listening reveals that the sound does not come from their own footsteps, suggesting another presence moving somewhere inside the mansion. Attention turns toward the upper floor as the strange clanking grows louder. Moments later, a suit of armor begins running through the corridor without anyone inside it. The empty armor moves with unnatural force, its heavy steps ringing across the wooden floor, while the watchers stare in disbelief. Without warning, the armor charges forward and swings a powerful attack, smashing through the corridor and sending debris flying across the hall. Inside the mansion corridor, a heavy armored figure suddenly leaps down toward the group. Panic spreads as the unexpected attack forces them to react quickly. After landing, the headless armor stands upright and faces the intruders. Its empty body moves on its own, creating fear among those watching. Without hesitation, the armor charges forward again and swings a powerful strike. A heavily armored knight suddenly rushed down the corridor at full speed. The sound of metal armor echoed through the hallway as the figure charged forward with clear aggression. Nearby, two young people noticed the sudden threat. The girl showed clear panic, while the boy quickly focused on the approaching knight. Behind them, the armored pursuer continued advancing and slowly reduced the distance between them. During the escape, the boy turned slightly and hurled his spear toward the attacker with a swift motion. The weapon flew across the hallway and struck the armored knight, interrupting the charge while the pair kept moving away. A strong wind, like magic, formed around them, spinning in sharp circular blades that rushed forward through the hallway toward the armored pursuer. The attack struck the knight and pushed the armored body across the floor. Despite the impact, the enemy struggled to regain balance and began moving again. Seeing the opening, the boy directed another attack toward the knight's upper body. A powerful blow followed immediately. The impact shattered parts of the armor and sent the pieces scattering across the corridor. Broken armor parts rolled along the floor while the hallway finally became quiet. The two stood safely as the defeated enemy remained in pieces behind them. Fragments of the broken armor suddenly began moving again. The empty shell slowly reassembled and stood upright, revealing that the enemy had revived. For a brief moment, the hallway became quiet. The boy focused on the strange movement, sensing that the armor had not been completely destroyed. Soon after, the revived armor rushed forward through the corridor. Its heavy steps echoed loudly as it charged toward the boy and the girl once again. Before it could reach them, the armor suddenly lost control and collapsed forward, sliding across the floor toward several people standing further down the hallway. Danger passed while the boy continued carrying the girl, bringing the tense chase to an end. A small witch-like girl appeared calmly, revealing that the girl's soul was unusually open. Her presence carried a strange and mysterious aura as she observed the situation with interest. Because the armor could not speak, using the girl allowed her to communicate with the people in the mansion. Floating lightly, the spirit praised the purity of the girl's soul, that innocence had made it easy for the spirit to slip inside and act freely. Standing close to the boy, the spirit spoke casually, as if the entire incident had simply been entertainment. Meanwhile, the others discussed what had happened, realizing that the strange armor had likely been controlled by a lingering ghost. The witch calmly replied that she already knew everything about it and mentioned the name of the lord involved. Turning toward him with a faint smile, the witch revealed a shocking truth. The one responsible for stealing the man's soul was actually her own sister. Inside the mansion, she described how the strange clay armor had ended up under the Count's control. She then spoke about an old legend of a witch who had died long ago yet was said to return after a century. According to the story, after 100 years passed, the buried witch finally revived, rising again from the grave. Sitting calmly inside the mansion, the witch revealed that her sister had used forbidden magic to restore her flesh and blood. To her story, the revived witch planned to reclaim everything that once belonged to her homeland and carry out her revenge. Hearing this, the boy realized the old legend had been true. The witch calmly added that the clay armor they had destroyed could never be restored. One of the men warned the boy not to interfere. The situation, he believed, was far beyond something the boy could solve. Unbothered by their concern, the witch simply smiled and told the boy to forget everything and leave the mansion. Inside the mansion, the witch dismissed the boy's determination without concern. Several people stood around while the boy remained firm. The boy questioned her calmly, pointing out that her earlier claim about the girl's condition did not make sense. He continued reasoning that the girl was not truly gone. Just like the nobleman whose soul had been taken, her soul might still exist somewhere. Standing before the witch, the boy explained that if a soul had been taken, it must still remain somewhere in the world. The witch listened quietly, while the boy asked where the missing soul had gone, showing his resolve to pursue the truth further. Others watched in silence, realizing he would not step back from the situation, despite the danger surrounding them. Across the room, the witch reacted with clear satisfaction. Her long plan had finally reached the moment she had waited for. A strange change began within her body as fragments of power slowly returned. The revival process continued while her strength gradually recovered. Standing in the dark corridor, the witch prepared for the next step. With her power returning, she moved forward with the intention of carrying out her revenge. Within a shattered room, a cloaked magician spreads his arms as he declares the end of Altheum. Elsewhere, a young girl sits quietly on a sofa, while a man stands across a table from her, leaning slightly forward. The girl finally decides to reveal information about Clay's soul. Careful thought guides her decision as she considers the consequences of sharing the truth. Standing before her, the man introduces himself as Oscar Lutz. In response, the girl reveals that she opposes her sister's actions and does not support what is happening. Rising with quiet confidence, she presents herself as Margaret. Guidance follows as she explains that Clay is currently with her sister. Her expression carries quiet confidence, as she hints that returning the body may be possible under certain conditions. Soon after, Oscar moves toward a large house at the edge of a village. At the same time, panic spreads through the streets as villagers flee in fear. High above the village, a dark-robed figure raises a large scythe. The weapon swings through the air as the figure unleashes destructive power. Multiple cloaked figures glide across the sky like shadows. Their movements sweep over rooftops as the village falls into disorder. Strange glowing forms begin rising from the ground into the night sky. The drifting lights resemble wandering souls leaving the village behind. From a hill overlooking the village, two figures observe the strange lights rising into the sky. The woman admits that the situation is real, even though it seems impossible. She quietly acknowledges that her sister possesses far greater talent and a deeper understanding of its source than she ever did. Suddenly, Oscar rushes forward as soldiers gather behind him. Lambert steps forward and entrusts Oscar with command of the troops. At the same time, the group organizes their response. Rena prepares to rescue the remaining villagers, while others prepare to confront the enemies in the air. Without hesitation, Oscar charges toward the battlefield. A cloaked enemy descends violently from above. Standing alone on a hill, Margaret looks down at the quiet land, where the village once thrived. Memories of the past surface as she reflects on everything that has already disappeared. Meanwhile, the battle intensifies as a warrior unleashes a powerful wind attack. Spiraling waves of air surge forward, forming a violent strike aimed directly at the cloaked enemy. The spinning force crashes into the robed figure, creating a massive shock that shakes the battlefield. At the same moment, another soldier activates enhancement magic, strengthening his weapon and movements before rushing forward to join the assault. Watching the scene unfold, the soldiers realize the terrifying truth that the battle may continue without end. Impact sends fragments scattering across the battlefield as several fighters collapse from the shock. In response, Lutz raises his weapon and activates a powerful secret magic. A large magic circle forms beneath the moon as countless blades appear in the sky. Allies recognize Lutz's strength, while the exhausted troops struggle to maintain their position against the relentless attacks. Seeing the situation clearly, Lutz makes a decisive choice. Without hesitation, he turns away from the battlefield and begins moving toward the true enemy responsible for the chaos. His companion quickly realizes the reason behind that decision. Unless the witch who created the magic is stopped, The endless resurrection of enemies will continue without end. Lutz advances through the battlefield with determination. Behind him, his companion follows closely as both move forward to confront the witch. Across a shallow stream in the forest, a boy moves quickly toward an abandoned house. While a girl follows behind him, suspicion appears on the girl's face as she studies the boy beside her. Doubt grows in her mind about his reason for helping. Along the forest trail, the girl steps ahead with firm determination. Protecting her sister's name becomes her main purpose as she moves deeper into the woods. Suddenly, a strange magical device appears in the clearing ahead. Both travelers slow down, carefully observing the unfamiliar object, blocking their path. Without warning, a violent blast erupts from the ground. Quickly reacting, the boy pulls the girl away from the attack. The witch watches from a distance, revealing she has been observing everything for a long time. With Troy gone, no one remains to stand in her way. Power surges around the witch as she announces the return of her full magical strength. Hatred fills her expression as she directs her anger toward those she blames for her suffering. Dark magic spreads across the battlefield as enormous shadowy hands emerge from the void. Fear appears on the girl's face as she witnesses the overwhelming attack. Desperation grows while she tries to stop her sister before everything is destroyed. Amid the descending shadows, Lutz drives his spear into the ground and activates a magic circle. Lutz launches forward from his magic circle, thrusting his spear with great force. The attack cuts through the air and strikes toward the witch. The impact crashes into the ground as magical energy explodes outward. Debris scatters across the clearing while the witch calmly faces the assault. Her magic lashes forward while Lutz braces himself and pushes back against the overwhelming force rushing toward him. Blood runs down the witch's face as she studies Lutz closely. Realization appears in her eyes while Lutz continues advancing without hesitation. With the final clash approaching, Lutz unleashes his strongest magic to bring the battle to its end. High above the battlefield, Lutz gathers dark energy into a massive sphere. The witch watches from the ground and bursts into mocking laughter. Confidence fills the witch as she spreads her arms and releases her own magic. She believes witches alone understand the true structure of such power. A violent blast erupts across the ground as her spell strikes forward. The magical shockwave tears through the clearing, sending debris and energy outward toward Lutz. As the two powers collide, the witch's expression shifts with sudden tension. Something about Lutz's magic begins to feel unfamiliar and dangerous. The massive sphere pushes forward, forcing the witch backward across the battlefield. Lutz pushes forward despite his injuries, gripping his spear while energy surges around him. Determination drives him as he continues the fight. Flames spiral outward as Lutz amplifies his power. The blazing energy twists into a massive vortex, rushing toward the witch and filling the sky with destructive force. From the raging fire emerges the shape of a gigantic dragon made of blazing magic. The flaming dragon crashes forward and engulfs the witch in its burning spiral. Fire surrounds her as the attack consumes the ground and everything within its path. Weak and fading, she struggles to accept the outcome, while the battlefield grows quiet after the final strike. A deep trench splits the battlefield. After the violent clash of magic, smoke rises from the ruined ground as the witch stands weakly near the crater. Lutz stands above the shattered ground with his spear beside him. His calm posture shows the fight has already been decided, exhausted and wounded. The witch is held in place as Lutz approaches. Her fading strength reveals the final outcome of the battle. Unfamiliar ceiling above her came into view as several villagers leaned over the bed with worried expressions. Weakness still filled her body while she remained on the bed. Around her, several villagers stood quietly with relief visible on their faces. Within those fading memories, a strange moment surfaced. During that time she felt surrounded by darkness in a place she did not recognize. Relief quickly spread through the room once it became clear. She was awake. One villager rushed closer to the bed, overwhelmed after days of worry. Carefully, Clay lifted herself slightly and observed the room around her. Many villagers had gathered, their expressions filled with gratitude. In an open field far from the village, two figures faced each other after the battle had ended. The injured girl leaned forward weakly as the standing figure approached her. Her strength had faded, and returning to battle was no longer possible. Nearby, the young commander looked over the ruined area. Buildings had been damaged, and the village still showed signs of the struggle. Across the quiet field, the two opponents remained separated by a short distance. The one on the ground doubted that rebuilding everything would be simple. Even with the damage left behind, hope remained. Support from trusted allies would help rebuild what had been lost and guide the village toward a better future. The young commander explained his intention to restore respect to the witches who once built the land and its magic. Defeated girl listened while leaning weakly against the ground. she realized his actions were driven by an unusual determination. Another witch revealed the truth about the secret magic they once created during an old war. The spell had been designed for conflict when the country fought against the kingdom. Explanation continued with a warning about the spell's true nature. That power consumed an enormous amount of magical energy. After giving the warning, the witch quietly prepared to leave. She carried the injured girl in her arms while departing the battlefield. The battlefield finally grew quiet as the conflict came to an end. The witch, who had been sitting on the ground, prepared to depart with her injured sister. Without hesitation, she stepped closer to Oscar. The distance between them disappeared as she moved forward and wrapped her arms around him briefly. Gratitude appeared in her expression as she thanked him sincerely. Soon after, she lifted her wounded sister and summoned a large magical bird to carry them away. Far away from the battlefield, another witch suddenly found herself surrounded by an enormous pile of sweets. Excitement quickly replaced her confusion. Smiling brightly, she grabbed one of the sweets without hesitation. Deep within a quiet forest, Oscar suddenly staggered forward as someone jumped onto his back. The unexpected weight caused him to cry out in surprise. Moments later, the two lost their balance and collapsed onto the ground. Oscar quickly recognized the girl and stared in disbelief. Relief slowly appeared on Oscar's face after realizing she had returned safely. The girl apologized, explaining that all her strength had disappeared after everything that happened. Her expression softened as she looked at him closely, processing the situation after the long and exhausting events. Oscar gently supported her while they began walking through the forest path. The conflict had finally ended, and there was nothing left to fight. Along the quiet forest path, Oscar continued carrying the exhausted girl on his back. Despite her protests, he refused to let her walk alone while injured. After hearing his insistence, the girl finally relaxed and accepted the help. Fatigue weighed heavily on her body, making it clear she needed time to regain her strength. Back in the village, the aftermath of the conflict was visible everywhere. Broken houses and damaged streets showed the heavy impact of the battle. Oscar observed the reconstruction efforts while discussing the situation with others. Nearby, another witch assisted by transporting large wooden beams through magic. Near the damaged buildings, Oscar spoke with the villagers while holding a stack of reports. Everyone placed their hopes on Clay, believing she would continue helping guide the village forward. Hearing the comments around her, the witch paused for a moment. Instead of arguing, she calmly accepted the situation. Standing in the middle of the village square, she looked around at the workers, repairing houses and streets. Turning toward Oscar, the young witch firmly expressed her decision. From that moment on, she intended to support him and the village as they rebuilt everything that had been damaged. With determination in his expression, Oscar looked over the land stretching beyond the village. A long and complicated matter surrounding the territory finally came to an end. The issue that had delayed progress was resolved, allowing the next phase of work to begin. Soon afterward, Lutz received official recognition and was entrusted with the role of Lord of Alfheim. Inside the Office of Authority, he reflected on the situation and considered where his efforts should begin. Rather than complicating the task, he decided on a clear objective: guide the territory and steadily improve the condition of the land. Various duties followed, including collecting taxes, responding to disasters, protecting the territory, and maintaining stability throughout the domain. Important announcements had to be delivered across the land, and formal ceremonies at court required attendance. Administrative work demanded constant funding to keep the territory functioning. Trials and legal matters became another responsibility, ensuring order among the people. As the explanation continued, the growing list of obligations quickly became overwhelming. The pressure of understanding everything at once made the situation feel heavier than expected. Noticing this reaction, someone nearby reminded him that leadership was never meant to be carried alone. With that reassurance, Lutz realized others had chosen to stand beside him. Trust in those allies became an important step toward facing the challenges ahead rather than relying only on reports. He wanted to observe the land directly and learn about its condition with his own eyes. With that decision made, he prepared to step outside the office and begin exploring. Although the responsibility of being a lord still felt intimidating, however, the moment the door opened, an unexpected sight appeared in front of him. The situation quickly became clear. An attempt to clean the mansion using magic had failed, spreading the slippery mess across the entire hallway. Seeing the chaos, Lutz realized that unexpected problems were also part of managing a territory and its household. The quiet road reminded them of a previous journey that had passed through the same area when traveling from Ima village toward the witch's residence. Further ahead, they encountered Dorothea and another helper gathering medicinal herbs in the forest. Group explained that the forest held many dangers, so assistance was necessary while collecting herbs. Not far away, a pair of wild pigs wandered beneath the trees. eating fallen nuts scattered across the ground. Peaceful sight caught everyone's attention, and the group paused briefly before continuing their walk through the forest. A villager explained that these animals were valuable sources of food, making them important for the community's survival. Villager then described a growing problem. Monsters had recently begun attacking from the wastelands beyond the forest, and their numbers had increased. The barrier that once protected the settlement had been destroyed during the witch incident. Since then, the villagers had been living in constant worry. Looking across the open land, Lutz observed how remote the area was. The villagers relied mostly on their own efforts to sustain their lives. Soon after, they encountered a worker repairing a windmill, showing that the people were still trying to maintain the village despite its difficulties. Near the windmill, a villager explained that the structure was important for grinding wheat. However, constant repairs were needed, and fixing it alone only provided temporary solutions. As they continued walking, the growing number of problems became clear. The territory lacked enough workers, and the responsibilities kept increasing. Lutz remembered how quiet the village had been when he first arrived. Despite the peaceful breeze, fear had filled the settlement because everyone stayed inside to avoid monsters. Looking across the land again, he decided that the people should not continue living under that constant threat. With determination, Lutz formed a clear plan to protect the village by constructing a strong barrier. Back at the meeting room, Lutz presented his plan to build a protective barrier. The structure would mainly face the wastelands, preventing monsters from entering the territory and threatening the village again. To manage the growing responsibilities, he decided to divide the work among his companions. Other roles were assigned as well. Straight would oversee tax collection, Paul would handle negotiations, and Lambert would manage budgeting and financial matters for the territory. The sudden distribution of responsibilities surprised several members as the scale of their tasks became clear. Finally, Fina received the role of secretary, responsible for recording meetings and helping maintain organization within the group. After assigning the main responsibilities, Lutz concluded that the overall structure of their roles was finally set. During the meeting, Lambert reminded everyone about an imperial order connected to Lutz's position. Along with governing the territory, he was expected to find a spouse within a year. The unexpected reminder shocked the others, as many had completely forgotten about that condition tied to his appointment. Despite the surprise, Lutz reflected on how much busier his life had become compared to his days in the kingdom. Dorothea quietly reassured him that she would continue supporting his efforts, recognizing the hard work he was putting into leading the territory. During another meeting, the topic of Lutz's future spouse suddenly created tension among the group. Soon after, a witch arrived at the mansion and quickly understood what the commotion was about. Hearing this, one of the attendants decided to take the matter seriously, and began considering ways to find a suitable partner for Lutz. Watching the situation unfold, Lambert quietly reflected on how Lutz's life in the territory had become increasingly complicated. Inside the large hall, Dorothea searches the building while looking for Lutz. The quiet corridors and empty surroundings suggest that he is not present in the area, carrying a stack of folded items. Dorothea walks further through the hallway. Confusion grows as she wonders where Lutz could have gone. Soon after, Lutz is seen nearby holding several documents. Dorothea approaches and learns that he had gone outside earlier to inspect the defensive wall. A memory surfaces about a colleague mentioning that Lutz had stopped by to collect extra healing potions before leaving. Understanding the situation, Dorothea allows him to continue his task and turns back to focus on her own responsibilities. Lutz stands with a stack of papers in his arms while listening to a remark that compares his behavior to a loyal puppy. Nearby, Dorothea holds several folded items and gently advises him not to push himself too hard. He returned the pendant, even though the situation had been dangerous, despite there being no obligation for him to do so. Hearing this, Lutz quietly reflects on the reason behind his actions. The encouragement he once received from Lutz inspired him to stay close and become someone useful. Concern still remains for Dorothea, who worries about his tendency to follow risky tasks without hesitation. Dorothea reflects on the importance of making personal decisions instead of blindly following someone admired. Broken stones and scattered debris reveal a troubling scene, showing that the structure has suffered heavy damage. The barricade built by villagers appears worn and unstable, while the domain's defensive walls show clear signs of neglect and decay. Discussion turns towards solutions. Repairing the wall becomes the main priority, and gathering manpower from the nearby village is suggested to support the work. Seeing the situation unfold, Lutz confidently steps forward to handle negotiations and move the repair efforts forward. While observing the surroundings near the damaged wall, one of the group suddenly senses something unusual. Later, Lutz and his companions meet with a village elder to discuss the condition of the damaged barricade. During the discussion, Lutz is asked about his investigation near the forest barricade. The elder seems relieved to hear that the group returned safely from the area. Hidden deep within the woods lives a race very different from humans, rarely seen but known to watch the surrounding lands. These beings are described as extremely powerful hunters with a troubling history. Their strength and past actions have often led to conflicts and unreasonable demands toward nearby settlements. The villagers explain that the race living deep in the forest is difficult to deal with. Whenever they visit the village, trouble usually follows. Further warnings are given about their behavior. The group learns that these people rarely listen to requests and tend to act according to their own whims. Later, Lutz rests near the forest edge while thinking about what others said earlier. Doubt begins to grow in his mind as he reflects on how people might truly see him. Memories surface of how others describe him compared to stronger and more reliable figures. While thinking about becoming stronger and more dependable, a sudden sound from nearby grass catches his attention. His attention sharpens as he notices a figure chasing a small creature through the trees. Lutz reacts instantly, shouting a warning while jumping down to intervene before the strike reaches its target. The attacker's blow crashes into the ground with great force, sending debris flying. Lutz is caught in the impact and thrown aside by the shock. Standing over him, the horned warrior studies Lutz with curiosity, recognizing that he tried to protect the creature during the attack. Inside a massive hall, the demon lord Idia sits upon his throne. His sharp gaze hardens after hearing a surprising declaration nearby. A tall horned woman confidently holds a small armored man in her arms. With firm resolve, she announces her intention to marry him. Confusion fills the small knight's mind as he reflects on the strange path his life has taken. Earlier that night, he had been traveling through a quiet forest when he suddenly crossed paths with the horned woman. Without hesitation, she lifted him and continued walking deeper into the forest, while he remained stunned by the bizarre situation. A horned warrior woman arrives at a hidden village built among stone ruins and cave-like homes. The quiet settlement appears deep within the forest, far from ordinary lands. Not long after entering, a powerful demon lord named Idia appears before her. He calmly acknowledges her success in capturing another target by herself. Before the strike can land, the horned woman swiftly moves and blocks the assault, protecting the small figure she carries. With fierce determination, she loudly declares that the human is the man she intends to marry. Shock spreads through the gathered demons as they struggle to understand why she would choose a human as her husband. The hall suddenly falls silent as the demon lord raises his hand. His presence alone forces everyone to stop speaking. Idia sits firmly on his throne and stares at his daughter with a serious expression. He demands that she repeat the shocking claim. Standing before him, the horned woman calmly announces that she intends to marry the human she brought. Despite his warning, she firmly holds the small human and refuses to step back from her choice. Demon Lord then speaks about marriage, reminding everyone that a true couple must support one another. The Demon Lord explains the long history between demons and humans. In their world, the relationship has always been built on domination and control. Statement angers Idia. The Demon Lord reacts with sudden fury, lifting the tiny human with overwhelming strength. Situation quickly grows tense as powerful energy spreads across the ground. Several demons become alarmed and urge their leader to calm down before things escalate further. Another demon steps forward and gently tries to ease the tension, reminding everyone that strong emotions only worsen conflict. Soon after, the woman's mother appears and warns that the human could bring suffering to their entire clan. A horned man confronts Idia and reminds her that their engagement was decided by their parents. Idia firmly rejects the arrangement and states that she has no intention of marrying him. He orders everyone to step back and allows the human to remain in the village for the moment, so the matter can be discussed later. Left alone in a quiet corner, the small human reflects on the strange trouble surrounding him. Feeling like a burden, he decides it would be better to disappear and leave the place. Using his magic, he quietly escapes from the village, while the horned woman notices his sudden departure. After escaping the village, the small human runs through the rocky ruins while thinking about the strange situation. Meanwhile, the Demon Lord speaks privately with Idia in the village. He questions whether her decision was made in haste and urges her to reconsider such an unusual choice. Idia answers with firm resolve. She explains that the human is not ordinary but a magician, and she truly believes in him. Elsewhere, the escaping human begins to realize that others may recognize his identity. Back in the village, Idia's father acknowledges her words, but still views the situation as a serious disgrace. Left alone after the argument, Idia stands quietly in the open ruins of the village. The tension from the earlier confrontation weighs heavily on her mind. From behind, her figure remains still as she thinks about the path chosen for her since childhood. Not far away, the human who had escaped suddenly notices her presence. Their eyes meet across the open ground, surprising both of them. Human approaches carefully and admits that he still does not fully understand the situation, though he offers help if she is facing trouble. Idia listens quietly while he explains that someone may already be waiting for him elsewhere, making their situation even more complicated. The young human looks at Idia with a gentle expression and explains his decision. Instead of leaving her behind, he chooses to stay for a moment longer. Hearing this, Idia watches him closely. The human's choice surprises her, since no one has shown such concern for her situation before. Standing across from each other in the quiet ruins, the distance between them feels smaller as a new understanding slowly begins to form. Lutz sits on the ground after the encounter, watching the horned woman from the Van tribe standing before him. Without hesitation, the woman suddenly moves closer and declares her wish to marry him. Shock spreads across Lutz's face as the unexpected proposal catches him completely off guard. Confusion grows, prompting Lutz to question her desperate request. In response, the woman begins revealing the background of the Van tribe. For years, the Van tribe survived by raiding fields, stealing food, and threatening humans for supplies and money. Despite following that harsh life since childhood, she eventually grows tired of it and hopes to leave that violent path behind. While moving through the forest one day, the horned woman suddenly hears cries for help. Seeing the danger, she prepares her weapon and jumps down from the trees. The monsters rush forward, but she confronts them directly and begins fighting to protect the villagers. Soon after, a traveler named Clay arrives at the scene. The monsters have already been defeated. From a distance, the horned woman quietly watches Clay speaking with the villagers. She notices that he fought only to protect them and never asked for any reward. Observing this, she realizes how different Clay is from her tribe's way of living. The thought stays in her mind as she begins questioning her own path. While watching from afar, the horned woman notices two humans, smiling warmly after being saved. Gradually, she starts questioning the harsh way of life taught by her father and the traditions of the Van tribe. Determination grows within her, leading to a clear decision. She resolves to leave the Van tribe and search for a different path in life. However, the tribe plans to secure leadership through a political marriage, forcing her into an arrangement that would trap her within the clan forever. To escape that fate, she chooses to seek marriage with someone outside the tribe, believing it is the only way to follow her true feelings. After hearing her story, Lutz calmly responds and explains that he cannot accept her proposal. Sitting beside her, he advises her to speak honestly with her father about her feelings and desire to change her life. He also promises that he will help explain things if necessary. Lutz believes that if her father understands not all humans are enemies, his view might slowly change. The horned woman watches him closely, surprised by his sincerity and courage. His willingness to help leaves a strong impression on her. Although fear fills his mind, he gathers the courage to face the intimidating figure and speak on her behalf. Standing before her father, the horned woman prepares herself and declares that she will be the one leaving. Determination fills her voice as she states her decision to leave the Van tribe and live in the outside world. The chief refuses to accept the idea. Living among humans seems impossible to him, and he questions her resolve. Nearby, Lutz carefully speaks, suggesting that humans and the Van tribe might support each other without domination or control. To explain his thoughts, Lutz begins telling the story of his own people, a race once treated as slaves because they lacked magical power. Their sharp gazes and intimidating presence make him nervous, but he forces himself to remain steady while facing them. They remember being scorned, insulted, and oppressed by those with power, which shaped their harsh way of living. Despite their accusations, Lutz firmly denies that the current lord follows such cruelty. With determination, he insists that the man he serves would never steal from or oppress others. He explains that the Lord uses his power and magic to protect and help people rather than control them. Finally, Lutz tells the chief to judge the truth with his own eyes and recognizes the horned woman's courage in choosing her own path. Lutz hesitates after hearing the chief question the existence of such a noble lord. Doubt briefly crosses his mind, yet he continues standing firm in front of the tribe, rejecting the idea completely. He declares that there is no possible path for humans and the Van tribe to coexist. The chief admits he would like to see the face of this so-called noble lord, while also acknowledging the courage of the human who dared to argue with him. Filled with hatred for humans, the chief prepares to unleash his full strength and vows to destroy them without mercy. Before the situation can worsen, a report arrives about a suspicious outsider who attempted to sneak into the village and was immediately captured. A confident man arrives at the Van tribe's village, revealing himself as the lord while standing calmly as warriors guard him. On the battlefield, Lutz stands quietly while his subordinates react to the sudden appearance of a giant horned monster. Soon after, a knight arrives and reports that he had been searching for Lutz throughout the area. Others urge their lord to move away because the enemy is already closing in. Suddenly, the massive monster slams the ground with brutal strength. The impact throws debris into the air as the soldiers struggle to keep their balance. Meanwhile, the creature declares its determination to take control and never submit. From a short distance, Lutz studies the enemy's behavior and understands its intent. With the situation clear, Lutz leaps forward and launches a direct attack against the towering monster. A violent explosion strikes the ground as the horned monster attacks with overwhelming force. Standing firm, Lutz raises his spear and calmly observes the monster's reaction. Confusion spreads among the enemies as his magic disrupts their actions. Later, Lutz sits with several companions inside a building while examining a strange horn taken from the battlefield. The group begins discussing the object and its possible origin. Older villagers explain that the horn comes from a long-standing legend passed down through generations. According to the story, the Van tribe's former chieftain once possessed the horn until it was destroyed and seized by a powerful lord long ago. Inside the room, several members discuss the horn recovered from the battlefield. Some wonder if horns can grow back naturally, while others question how important they truly are. During the meeting, the group realizes their lord has stepped away to investigate the matter personally. Elsewhere, Lutz confronts the horned warrior and easily stops the attack with his spear. The enemy's strength proves ineffective against him. The defeated warrior reveals that horns are extremely precious to their tribe, and losing one means losing their dignity, for their people. The stolen horn is a painful reminder of a past when their tribe lived under oppression. The horned warrior charges forward with rage, determined to recover the stolen horn and defeat Lutz. Rather than escalating the fight, Lutz lowers his weapon and promises to return the horn. The unexpected response leaves the warrior momentarily stunned. Suspicion quickly follows. The horned warrior refuses to trust the words of a human lord and doubts the promise. Still, Lutz suggests searching for the missing horn to prove his intention. After hearing this, one of Lutz's companions volunteers to go and retrieve the horn. To ensure trust, Lutz decides to remain behind as a guarantee while they search for it. Lutz calmly warns the horned warrior about the consequences if the missing horn is not found. Shock spreads among his companions as they realize Lutz is risking his life without knowing where the horn actually is. The situation appears reckless, yet Lutz remains composed. Despite the danger, Lutz shows confidence and places his trust in Straight to recover the lost horn. Determined to fulfill that trust, Straight immediately rushes away to search for the missing item. Seeing this, another warrior follows after him, while the horned leader watches the unfolding events carefully. Straight runs across the rocky path while his companion follows closely behind. Doubt appears on his face as he questions whether he should be involved in such a dangerous task. Despite his uncertainty, Straight remembers the trust Lutz always shows him. That memory strengthens his resolve, pushing him forward to complete the mission. While searching near the village, the pair recall the legend about the Van tribe's horns. The story may hold a clue to the missing horn's location. They begin asking the villagers for information, but no one seems to know anything about the horn. After questioning several people, Straight realizes their search has not produced any useful leads. Exhaustion weighs on him, yet he begins considering another possible place where the missing horn might be hidden. Soon, his attention turns toward the Lord's large mansion. The building stands prominently in the town, making it a possible location for something valuable. Determined to succeed, Straight resolves to search the mansion and recover the horn for Lutz. A large noble mansion stands beyond a quiet garden and tall stone steps. The estate belongs to a powerful lord and is rumored to hide many secrets. Inside the mansion, a young investigator carefully observes the grand hall while examining clues about the missing horn. Further clues reveal the horn was likely hidden carefully during a recent cleanup. Soon after, the search party moves quickly through the corridor to continue the investigation. Suddenly, an irritated guard appears and blocks their path. A young lord sits on the ground after searching everywhere through the night. Hunger and exhaustion slow his movements, yet he continues thinking about the missing horn. Calmly, the young lord explains that he only recently gained his title. Responsibility over others still feels unfamiliar, but he accepts the challenge and continues trying to act as a proper leader. Not far away, a captured warrior stands inside a wooden cage while another beastman guards him carefully. The prisoner finally introduces himself as Argos, the tribe's chieftain. Argos then reveals he has led the tribe for 100 years. 4 generations, he has protected his tribe and carried the burden of leadership without hesitation. The responsibility shaped his life, and his resolve never wavered. Hearing this story, the young lord studies Argos with interest, experience and determination from the veteran warrior leave a strong impression on him. Meanwhile, the search for the missing horn continues inside the mansion. One investigator hurriedly checks desks and shelves, pulling open drawers while frustration grows. Every room of the mansion is examined carefully, yet the horn remains missing. As the sun begins to set over the town, time grows short for the search. Energy gathers around his hands as he begins searching for hidden traces. Observing from nearby, his companion watches the strange magic with concern. Mana spreads through the building as Lutz carefully scans the surroundings. His ability allows him to detect magical traces that ordinary searches cannot find. A sudden reaction appears from the floor ahead. The magical signal reveals a hidden path, and Lutz quickly points toward the direction where the energy responds. Following the trace, they arrive before an ordinary wall inside the mansion corridor. At first glance, nothing unusual can be seen. Lutz releases another burst of magic toward the wall, forcing the hidden seal to break and exposing what was concealed behind it. After the hidden wall collapses, a narrow spiral staircase appears behind it. Dust falls as the passage reveals a secret route leading deeper into the mansion. Beyond the staircase, a concealed room filled with furniture and scattered items comes into view. Magical traces inside the room remain confusing because they mix with the energy from the entrance. Even so, determination pushes the searchers to keep looking for the missing horn. Minutes pass while every corner is examined carefully, yet nothing appears. Outside, the sun begins to sink toward the horizon. Watching calmly, Lutz shows quiet confidence, despite the growing pressure. Instead of rushing the search, he considers how someone powerful might hide something important within the mansions. Slowly, he imagines the actions of the person who concealed the horn. Avoiding attention and erasing traces would be the safest method to keep such an object hidden. This realization leads him to reconsider every place inside the mansion. The horn must be somewhere nearby, but hidden using a method that ordinary thinking would overlook. A new idea forms as he reflects on the opposite of his own way of thinking. Turning toward his companion, Lutz focuses on the object in the room that draws the most attention. Attention settles on a large mirror fixed firmly into the mansion wall. Its ornate frame and central position make it the most noticeable object inside the hidden room. Idia carefully examines the mirror and realizes it is embedded deeply into the wall. Unlike ordinary decorations, it appears impossible to remove. While observing the reflection, something unusual appears. The mirror shows Lutz, even though his stealth magic should hide his presence. This strange reflection reveals an important clue. The mirror holds stronger magic capable of overriding Lutz's concealment ability. Understanding the truth at last, Lutz concludes that the missing horn is hidden inside the enchanted mirror. Inside a quiet study filled with shelves and furniture, a young boy and a horned woman examine a large mirror above the fireplace. To test the object, the boy swings a chained weapon toward the mirror. A sudden magical reaction appears the moment the attack reaches it. Energy ripples across the invisible wall, proving strong magic protects the mirror. Realization comes quickly as the boy steps away. Determination rises as the horned woman charges forward and prepares a powerful blow. With full force, her fist slams into the barrier, sending shockwaves through the room while the magical shield withstands the impact. A powerful strike shatters the magical barrier protecting the mirror. Fragments of energy scatter through the room as the horned woman pulls back her arm after the impact. Surprise appears on the woman's face as she realizes the barrier was destroyed by her own strength. On the floor rests a curved horn that had been hidden behind the barrier. Its shape and texture reveal that it is the chieftain's horn they were searching for. Excitement rises as both of them recognize the object. The boy quickly points toward the horn while the woman confirms the discovery. Without wasting time, the two rush down the hallway carrying the item, determined to return and report their successful find. Under the fading evening sky, the boy carries the large horn while the horned woman follows beside him. Time passes as they travel across the dark landscape. The boy struggles with the heavy horn but refuses to stop. Smoke rising in the distance catches their attention. The sight of a burning fire suggests activity ahead, raising concern about what may be happening near their destination. The horned woman follows closely as urgency pushes them to reach the place as fast as possible. Soon after, the village gathers around a large bonfire in celebration. People cheer loudly while drinks are raised, turning the night into a lively feast. During the village celebration, the boy arrives carrying the large horn while the horned woman walks behind him. The atmosphere grows louder as they encourage him to relax and enjoy the feast after his hard work. Lutz hesitates at first, trying to refuse the alcohol. However, the villagers continue urging him, amused by his polite attitude and determination to remain responsible. At that moment, the boy and the horned woman finally spot Lutz among the crowd. Relief appears as they confirm he is safe and present at the celebration. Without delay, the boy raises the large horn and calls for attention, determined to show the important item they recovered before anything else happens. The celebration pauses when the boy arrives holding the large horn. Villagers turn their attention toward him, and the horned woman standing beside him. Excitement quickly replaces the surprise. Members of the tribe gather around while recognizing the horn as the symbol of their former leader. He collapses onto the ground while Lutz kneels beside him, acknowledging the effort and determination shown during the mission. Nearby, the tribe's chieftain observes the scene and reflects on the boy's growth. Recognition forms as he sees the determination needed to stand above others. Gratitude follows as the chieftain thanks the group for restoring the pride of the tribe by returning the treasured horn. During the celebration, the tribe's leader suddenly makes a bold declaration. Looking at the boy with approval, he loudly announces that the boy is worthy enough to marry Idia. Confusion quickly spreads through the crowd. The boy reacts with panic as people begin surrounding the area. Frustration appears as he complains about the announcement and argues that such a decision should not be made so easily. Despite the complaints, the man continues explaining his intention to shape the clan according to Idia's hopes and future. As the night continues, it becomes clear that the speaker is heavily drunk, leaving the others uncertain about whether the declaration should be taken seriously. Lutz steps forward and gathers everyone's attention. The boy sits nearby, holding the recovered horn while listening carefully. A new plan is presented to repay the tribe for their help and trust. Lutz proposes building a defensive wall around the village to strengthen their protection and secure the settlement. Standing proudly, he acknowledges that both he and Idia should begin learning more about the wider world beyond their homeland. Hearing this decision, Idia quietly reacts while observing her father and the others discussing the future of the clan. Meanwhile, the boy lies exhausted near the bonfire, while the celebration continues around him, marking the end of the long and eventful night. Away from the noisy celebration, the boy and Idia sit together under the quiet night sky. The moon shines above while the festival continues in the distance. The boy reflects on the mission and the risks he accepted. Determination guided his actions, as he only wished to support Lutz and complete the task without hesitation. Courage grows within her as she decides she will no longer run away from the responsibilities connected to those she cares about. With that decision, Idia chooses to remain with the Van tribe and live among them, while the celebration continues around the bonfire. Encouragement and understanding remain between them, as both look ahead to their own paths. Idia firmly rejects the sudden marriage proposal. The boy lowers his head, disappointed, realizing the unexpected confession has ended in refusal. Afterward, both walk back toward the village celebration, while people wait near the bonfire, eager to meet them after the long mission. A massive stone wall rises beside the settlement as construction continues across the busy site. Workers move timber and stones while others carefully assemble the structure. Soon after, two officials arrive to inspect the work. Their attention shifts between the laborers and the expanding wall. Elsewhere, members of the Van tribe push forward with strong determination. Meanwhile, several villagers carry heavy materials with surprising strength and coordination. Their effort and teamwork leave a strong impression on the observers. Despite this cooperation, doubt still appears among the watchers. The villagers once created trouble, yet their current behavior shows unexpected unity. A witch quietly watches the situation from above the wall, resting her head on one hand while observing the people below. Not far away, Lutz stands near the wall while another official continues monitoring the site. The discussion turns toward the wall itself. The structure continues rising quickly, and the group reflects on how fast the project has advanced. Frustration suddenly appears as the witch complains about losing her usual role. Since the Lord arrived, most responsibilities have shifted away from her. She calls for his attention and explains that she has been searching for him because an important matter needs to be discussed. Lutz listens carefully as the witch mentions a place called Hellmouth Cave. The name immediately catches his attention. Inside the building, a researcher explains that a rare ingredient for medicine can only be collected from that cave. After hearing the request, Lutz quickly decides to help. He suggests that he and Clay will go to the cave together, showing confidence despite the risks involved. Before further planning continues, a messenger bird suddenly appears at the window. The unexpected arrival draws Lutz's attention as the message is delivered. Reading the letter, Lutz learns that Captain Hoodman will arrive tomorrow. The information comes directly from Crimbert, making the message important for the group. After reading the letter, Lutz learns that the message came from his former superior from the Special Forces. Realizing the captain will arrive soon, Lutz decides he must go meet him personally. This sudden situation means he will not be able to accompany Dorothea on the cave expedition. He announces that he will head to Hellmouth Cave himself before the captain arrives. Hoping to finish the task quickly, Dorothea reacts with surprise after hearing his decision. The sudden change interrupts the earlier plan that involved Clay joining the expedition. Despite the danger of the cave, Dorothea insists she can handle protecting the village while Lutz is away. Before leaving, Lutz entrusts Dorothea's safety to the witch. She adjusts her hat and quietly accepts the responsibility. Not long after, a wagon arrives at the settlement from the forest road. The carriage stops near the entrance, signaling the arrival of an important visitor. His presence quickly draws attention as he is recognized as Captain Hoodman, Lutz's former superior from the Special Forces. Lutz approaches the captain with a friendly expression, greeting him after a long time apart. The reunion brings back memories from their past service. However, the captain immediately maintains a strict attitude. Holding a document, he sharply evaluates the situation, reminding Lutz of the harsh discipline from their earlier days. Captain Hoodman surveys the quiet settlement after arriving. The place appears peaceful and calm, far from the intense conditions he expected. Suddenly, someone rushes in to report an unexpected problem. The disturbance interrupts the moment, drawing Lutz's attention as the situation becomes slightly chaotic. While observing the area, the captain continues evaluating Lutz's performance. Another deduction appears on the evaluation list, lowering the score once again. The evaluation sheet records both the earlier deductions and the standards expected from a lord. Holding the document firmly, Captain Hoodman declares that these results represent Lutz's perfect lord points, proving he has been sent to carefully assess Lutz's leadership. He points out that a proper leader should maintain dignity and assign tasks instead of handling every small responsibility personally. Lutz has been feeding livestock himself and managing routine work that should belong to his subordinates, which lowers his evaluation even further. Despite the strict criticism, Lutz responds calmly. The captain explains that trying to do everything alone proves he is not suited to lead. Before the conversation continues, someone arrives to report that the preparations for the welcome gathering are finished. Soon afterward, a large meal is served for everyone. The welcoming party begins, offering food and hospitality to Captain Hoodman after his long journey. He criticizes Lutz for handling small tasks himself, saying such actions are unnecessary for a lord and reduce his overall score. Despite the strict judgment, the captain acknowledges that Lutz still respects Crimbert's guidance. The conversation gradually shifts to their earlier days. The captain begins recalling their time in the royal court and the struggles they faced as apprentice mages. Life during that period was extremely difficult. Apprentices received almost no payment, and many of them carried heavy personal burdens. Among those challenges, Crimbert stood out as the person who recognized their abilities and fought to improve their situation. Captain Hoodman calmly explains how Crimbert once supported them during their difficult years. Because of that help, they eventually became proper mages and were able to repay their debts. Meanwhile, the conversation shifts to Clay. Someone reports that she left earlier to gather rare minerals from Helmuth Cave, but she has not returned yet. Lutz reflects on the situation while standing inside the building. The cave is known to be dangerous. Captain Hoodman remains calm and assumes Clay is simply acting stubborn again. Still, the absence begins to raise quiet suspicion. Far away, the entrance to Helmuth Cave finally appears. After a long journey, Dorothea and her companion arrive at the dangerous location. Deep inside a volcanic cave, a large fish-like monster suddenly erupts from the ground. The creature thrashes across the rocky surface, scattering dust and fragments of stone. Further inside the cave, two adventurers observe the strange creature from a safe distance. Ahead of them, a terrifying structure appears within the cavern. The place is called the Hellmouth Cave, an entrance shaped like a giant mouth formed by jagged rocks. Standing in the scorching environment, the girl begins to struggle with the intense heat. Sweat covers her body as the temperature rises. Moving quietly through the cavern, the girl wonders about the purpose of entering such a dangerous place, filled with monsters. The girl questions the boy's intention for bringing her into the cave. Suspicion crosses her mind, as she wonders if he doubts her ability to handle the situation. Turning toward her, the boy calmly acknowledges her actions. Protecting the village alone is not something ordinary people can achieve. They continue walking deeper through the rocky tunnel. The boy explains that avoiding fights with monsters is simply part of his personal belief. Suddenly, the boy calls out after spotting something further inside the cave. He signals the direction, drawing the girl's attention toward a strange area hidden within the stone walls. At the center of the cavern, a massive cocoon-like structure hangs from above. Threads spread across the cave ceiling, forming a large cocoon where several creatures are trapped. After noticing something nearby, the boy approaches the sticky remains without hesitation. The strange substance clings to his hands as he examines it closely. Kneeling on the ground, the boy carefully collects the dissolved remains into a small bag. The girl observes him with confusion as he calmly continues his work. While she finds the scene strange, the boy treats the discovery as valuable material. Looking at him more closely, the girl notices details that reveal he came from another kingdom. While exploring the cave, the girl grows curious about the boy's past. She wonders why he chose to leave the kingdom and travel to the empire. The girl suddenly forms an assumption about his reason. She suspects his decision might be connected to someone important he followed to the empire. After a brief silence, the boy finally reveals a part of his past. Long before arriving here, he had been thrown into prison. Hearing this confession surprises the girl. The revelation forces her to reconsider the person standing in front of her. Understanding the weight of the story, she quietly accepts that some experiences are not easy to explain. The girl quietly reflects on the boy's story while standing inside the cavern. Observing him carefully, she realizes something about his past. Suddenly, the cocoon above them bursts open. A small creature drops from the torn threads and lands nearby. Lutz chases after her, trying to calm her down while the small monsters crawl across the rocky floor. After escaping the swarm, the boy notices something unusual. Blood appears on the girl's leg, revealing that one of the small monsters bit her while she was running. Although the girl claims the injury is minor, he refuses to ignore it and carefully tends to her leg. While treating the wound, the boy carefully wraps the injured leg and gives practical advice. He reminds her that ignoring injuries can lead to worse problems later. After finishing the bandage, the boy notices the swelling around the bite mark. His eyes sharpen as he studies the injury more closely. The girl quietly watches him while he works. His careful attitude reminds her of someone from her past. Hearing her words, the boy pauses and begins recalling his own past. Long ago, he trained as an apprentice magician, alongside several companions who once fought beside him. The memory ends with a heavy truth. Those companions no longer remain, because he was the one who killed them. One group stands proudly after being declared the top performers for defeating the most monsters within the time limit. Soon after, another announcement reveals the lowest-ranking team. Clay and her companions stand quietly as their group is placed in last position. Each member must review their performance and write down points for improvement before the next training session. As the team walks away, Clay's teammates begin reflecting on the outcome. One of them apologizes for dragging the group down and accepts part of the responsibility for their poor result. However, other members quickly point out the truth. Despite the team's failure, Clay herself shows stronger individual ability than the rest of them. After the training results, members of the top team approach Clay's group with mocking smiles. They insult Clay's magic and treat her team as useless. Without warning, Clay raises her magic and releases a powerful attack. A large wave of energy crashes toward the arrogant students, forcing them back. Following the incident, an official announcement arrives. Clay receives a direct order to defeat Hudman, a well-known mage, among the academy. Hudman's reputation spreads widely. Many students admire his legendary achievements and speak of his unstoppable strength after becoming a mage. Despite the pressure of expectations, Clay and her companions once shared hopeful dreams. Standing in a circle, they place their hands together and confirm their shared determination to move forward as a team and overcome the challenges waiting ahead. While holding the team's promise in mind, Clay quietly strengthens her resolve. Passing the upcoming exam becomes her next goal. The apprentice mage graduation exam finally began, and Clay's group barely completed the first trial after surviving a difficult battle inside the dungeon. The endless monsters frightened the weaker members, causing the team to lose focus while exhaustion spread among them. Other students watched from a distance and mocked the group, believing the inferior team would once again fail the yearly examination. Pressure filled Clay's mind, because he blamed himself for not being strong enough to cover everyone's weaknesses during the dangerous mission. Suddenly, an emergency announcement echoed across the academy, suspending the exam and ordering every apprentice mage to report to the command room immediately. An emergency meeting interrupted the apprentice mage exam after reports revealed a massive monster horde moving toward the imperial capital. Because many soldiers were already deployed on other expeditions, the Empire requested apprentice mages to strengthen security around the city. Excitement quickly spread among several students after the instructors announced the dangerous mission would affect their final exam results. Later that night, Perla noticed Clay resting quietly and suspected he had suffered injuries during the brutal examination. Using healing magic, Perla carefully treated Clay's wound until the pain disappeared, leaving him relieved and deeply grateful for her support. Perla admitted she lacked talent in combat magic, but she still wanted her healing abilities to protect and support many people. Hearing her honest feelings, Clay encouraged Perla and reminded her the dangerous mission could still change their future. While guarding the area near the capital, a sudden explosion echoed across the rocky land and alarmed every apprentice mage nearby. Several students rushed toward the disturbance, ignoring Clay's warning that the sound might belong to a dangerous high-class monster. Tension rose among the group because failure during the mission would damage Clay's reputation and ruin their chance to prove themselves. Perla gathered her courage and promised herself she would become strong enough to support and protect the entire team during the mission. Determination filled the group as they continued forward, believing success in the dangerous operation could finally help them pass the exam. Moments later, the students discovered destroyed wagons and injured people scattered across the rocky battlefield. Gigantic monster suddenly revealed itself from beneath the cliffs, shocking everyone with its terrifying size and overwhelming presence. Fear spread through the apprentices after one student became trapped by the creature, while the others froze as its massive attack struck the ground. The giant monster suddenly charged toward the frightened apprentices, causing panic to spread across the battlefield within seconds. Despite everyone freezing in fear, Clay stepped forward and cast a powerful defensive spell to block the creature's attack. Determined to protect his teammates, Clay attacked the monster directly, but his strike was completely deflected by its hard body. Seeing Clay in danger, Roderick rushed into battle and launched his own magic to support the desperate fight against the creature. The enormous monster roared violently as its massive body crashed through the rocky area, overwhelming the apprentices with terrifying strength. The giant creature suddenly tightened its massive body, and the horrifying sound of crushing armor echoed across the battlefield. Without hesitating, Silva rushed forward and used defensive magic to protect the injured students from the monster's attack. Blood scattered through the air as the enormous creature countered violently, leaving the apprentices shocked by its overwhelming power. Standing before the terrifying monster, Clay finally realized the enemy was far stronger and larger than anyone had expected. Exhausted and badly wounded, Silva collapsed onto the ground while struggling to breathe after enduring the brutal battle against the creature. Trapped beneath the monster's enormous body, Perla begged Clay to survive and escape, even if the others could not continue fighting. Hearing her desperate plea, Clay struggled to stand while watching Perla remain behind, despite her severe injuries and exhaustion. The giant creature suddenly launched another violent attack, forcing Clay to dodge across the ruined battlefield, while debris scattered everywhere. Although barely conscious, Perla continued encouraging Clay because she believed he still possessed the potential to become an extraordinary mage someday. Those final words deeply affected Clay, and determination slowly returned to him as he realized he still needed to survive and keep moving forward. Ignoring her injuries, Perla charged toward the giant monster, while desperately trying to buy enough time for Clay to survive. Memories of Perla's dream to become a respected mage remained inside Clay's mind as he struggled to stay conscious during the battle. Suddenly, Clay screamed Perla's name after realizing she continued fighting alone against the overwhelming creature, without any support nearby. The monster's violent attack shattered the rocky walls and sent Perla crashing across the battlefield with tremendous force. Silence covered the destroyed area afterward, leaving Perla kneeling alone among the rubble, while broken weapons scattered across the ground nearby. A survivor sat in a desolate area and reflected on a tragedy that claimed many lives. Guilt weighed heavily on him because he had escaped while others perished. Regret followed his memories. Believing in his own talent, he acted recklessly and later wished he had stopped the disaster sooner. Unexpectedly, nobody blamed him. Instead, concern and kindness surrounded him, leaving him overwhelmed by their support. An elder reassured him and urged him to rest. Those words eased part of the burden he had carried. Despite that kindness, he chose to leave the royal court. His journey led him to Ama village, where people later praised him as a savior. Lutz broke down in tears as the weight of his past crushed him. Despite being praised by others, he could not forgive himself for what had happened. Deep inside, he believed the image people admired was far different from his true self. Their gratitude only made his guilt feel heavier. Meanwhile, a village girl treated his injuries and promised to examine him properly after they returned. Her care helped him remain calm. As they prepared to leave, she encouraged him to head back with her. Lutz remembered that she had once been imprisoned and questioned the reason behind it. Without hesitation, the girl revealed the truth. The crime that had sent her to prison was embezzlement. The village girl admitted that her crime had been serious. Even so, she explained that her actions had allowed her to save people who otherwise would have been left behind. As a doctor, she had chosen to prioritize patients with a chance of survival. Because of that decision, some lives could not be saved, and she carried that burden herself. She accepted that the past could never be changed. Whether she regretted it or not, the choice had already been made. Rather than telling Lutz to forgive himself, She encouraged him to keep moving forward and become someone he could truly respect. Her words left Lutz speechless as he quietly reflected on their meaning. Dorothea reminded Lutz that his true self was not defined only by his mistakes. The person he had become through every hardship was also part of who he was. With a gentle smile, she encouraged him to keep living and moving forward. Her words finally reached the guilt he had carried for so long. Suddenly, a sharp disturbance cut through the cave. Dorothea immediately sensed danger and turned toward the source. Without warning, a violent attack struck her from behind. Lutz watched in shock as she collapsed to the ground. A monstrous creature emerged from the darkness. As it advanced, Lutz rushed toward Dorothea, realizing a new crisis had begun. Lutz and Dorothea immediately recognized the giant spider. The creature was far larger and more dangerous than the one they had encountered before. Although wounded, Dorothea urged Lutz to escape first. Before he could react, the monster launched a barrage of webs toward them, refusing to abandon her. Lutz stepped forward and attacked. However, the spider easily blocked the strike, leaving him stunned. The monster pressed its advantage and unleashed a relentless assault. Forced onto the defensive, Lutz struggled to withstand the overwhelming power. A heavy blow finally broke through his guard and hurled him across the cavern. As he crashed into the ground, the battle quickly turned against him. Lutz noticed Dorothea struggling to stand. The injury from earlier had weakened her. Yet she still faced the giant spider without retreating. Meanwhile, the poison from the monster's bite began affecting Lutz. His body grew hotter, his vision blurred, but he forced himself to stay conscious. Caught in the spider's web, Lutz urged Dorothea to escape alone. Even in danger, he wanted her to survive. Dorothea refused to ignore the situation. Knowing they could both die if nothing changed, she desperately tried to convince him to run. Despite his condition, Lutz insisted he could still fight. Instead of fleeing, he ordered Dorothea to return to the village and bring help. Lutz made his decision. Running away again would only leave him trapped by regret, so he resolved to face the monster no matter the outcome. Gathering his remaining strength, he unleashed a powerful spell. Dorothea watched in shock as he prepared to risk everything in one desperate attack. The cavern erupted with violent impacts. Lutz roared through the pain while magical attacks slammed into the giant spider from every direction. Unable to withstand the barrage, the monster was driven backward. Explosions and shockwaves tore through the battlefield as the attack reached its peak. When the assault ended, Lutz collapsed onto the ground from exhaustion. Nearby, Dorothea stared in disbelief at the power he had displayed. The giant spider finally collapsed after Lutz's desperate attack. Seeing the monster defeated, Dorothea stood frozen in disbelief while exhaustion overtook him. Moments later, Lutz fell to the ground. Dorothea rushed toward him, struggling to process what had just happened. Lying on the cavern floor, Lutz reflected on his choice. For the first time, he had faced danger without fleeing and accepted the result.